1. And we're live, back at it again, finally. Which one? Am I looking at this one right here? Okay, that's all part of the podcast, too. Hey, don't edit anything out. Keep it here. I like it. I'm looking right at the camera. Once again, I'm your boy, Rick. Here again without my man, Pat. Which one are you looking at? Looking at this right here.
We need lights on top of the cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a fucking arrow and point it to you.
I'm your boy, Rick. Back at it again. Got my other host with me for the first time. Mac, how you feeling?
What's going on?
No, don't tell me what's going on. What's going on with you?
Man,
tell me something.
Shit. Life, titties,
Okay.
Same stuff every day, man.
What kind of titties you been looking at?
Every kind. The best kind. Big.
Flat chest?
Come on. I ain't looking at no dudes. The fuck?
Hey, I'm just asking the question.
Hey, man, I'm not a hater of any kind of titties whatsoever. But
Okay. I like that friendly banter back and forth. Now, before we really begin today, we got our first interview here. And today is the day of truth. When I leave here today, I want to get followed to my car. I want to get threatening calls. I want someone to drive past my kid's school. I want something crazy to happen because what I've been told here today is something just completely off the wall and something so true that the man cannot have that. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce MUFON. Please introduce yourself.
You go first, man.
Okay. I'm Ben Moss. I'm the chief field investigator for the state of Virginia for the Mutual UFO Network. And what I do is assign cases, take cases, work cases, and work with Tony, who's here today, assistant state director. But we've been working on multiple cases and some cases from the past that are very interesting and are coming out currently in the news because of the Pentagon releases. So it's interesting how some things old become new again because a focus goes on to what was a very interesting case from the past, and talking about Socorro in 1964, that even to this day the government never explained. It was one of the 701 UFO Blue Book cases that is still unknown. Tony?
Hello.
What's up, Tony?
How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, baby.
I'm Tony Angiola. I'm the assistant state director for Virginia, and I work with Ben here. And we're both also STAR Team field investigators, which just means that we just take on a little bit more work than the other investigators. But we've both been at this for a long time. Since we're in D.C., I want to say that y'all are sitting in a hotbed of UFO activity. You don't even realize. We're going to talk about 1953 and a few things going on.
Please.
And we'll get into all this a little bit later. But Ben and I, I should just mention how we met. We met at a business meeting.
Okay.
About 3 years ago? 4 years ago?
4, I think.
About 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just find a way to talk about ufology somehow. I don't know how. I talk to somebody. I find a way to bring it up, right? And next thing I know, he says to me, well, I'm the chief field investigator of Virginia. And at the time, I was an inactive member because, life got in the way, family, children, this whole kind of thing.
Understand.
So immediately I was like, man, this dude's cool. He's like, you got to come out to the meetings and this and that. Next thing you know, bam, he helps me out. I get to this level. We start doing cases together, and we run into this amazing case we're going to talk about in a little bit here. Like you said, it's from the past, but it's probably one of the most high-profile, most interesting UFO cases of all history that not enough people talk about.
So what actually got you started in ufology?
Me personally, I was graduating high school, and my computer teacher, for whom I thought was a robot.
True story.
I swear to God.
She probably taught math.
I mean, this dude, he would recharge in this back room. I swear he was plugging in or something, man. He wasn't consuming, like food like we do. And strangely enough, he comes up to me on the last day of school and he says, I have this book. He was almost like very cathartic, right? He's like, I have this book. I think you'll enjoy.
Ooh, okay.
And I'm like, damn, what's going on? I'm like, okay, thank you, And I just kind of threw it in my car, and I'm thinking, this is a UFO book, It's like, Close Encounters of the Third Kind is what I was going through my mind. And
it's a good movie.
Yeah, it was a great movie. We got some interesting information about that movie as well. Ooh. Just take a note. But I read that book, and even though it was the wrong book to read, And Ben would enlighten me later on and tell me that this case was actually a fraud. But it was enough to get me to the point where I started reading everything I could about ufology. And what interests me the most are cases that involved police officers, pilots, military officials, somebody who has something great to lose by coming forth with telling about a personal encounter. That's what interests me the most. And, something we can talk about later as well.
Okay. What about you, Ben? What got you started in this field?
I was with my dad sitting in bed. My dad was a physician, doctor in Richmond, and a patient who I think my dad had done something free for, gifted him with a small TV. And we're talking way a long time ago. I won't say the year, but it was a real small TV. It's about the size of a cassette player. And he turns it on, and we're watching a Walter Cronkite special on UFOs.
Nice.
And you can get it on YouTube. We put it on our site, MUFONVA.com. But it's kind of a pretty serious investigation of ufology, and they kind of debunk some things. But in watching it, and my dad was kind of a believer, like, wow, that's really cool. And I was probably 7 or 8 at the time. And I got hooked on it. And I'm a big comic book geek, so I'd go to the store and buy comics. But if I saw a UFO magazine, I'd grab that too. And back then in the day, and if you do a little background search on UFOs, 50s, 60s, 70s, kind of faded in the 70s, but the press would talk about them. There would be big reports. There's headlines that talk about saucers outrunning jets and the UFOs over DC in '53 and things like that. So back in the day, they would have military officials come out and talk about UFOs.
This is true.
When they interviewed Truman. And it's a very famous video you can find that a lot of people don't know exists, but they go, what do you talk about when you have these big cabinet meetings? He goes, well, the first thing we talk about is UFOs. And that's amazing that the President of the United States would say that. That's the first topic they talk about. And this was in the 50s when there was a lot of issues with these things flying over bases and things. So it's funny how they've been able to kind of bury that, but that's one of the most fascinating topics that you can talk about today. If other life is coming here and we can prove it, that's one of the greatest discoveries of mankind.
That definitely would.
True.
Yeah, that definitely would change everything if you could prove it. And I feel like today that the reason I want you to have up here is that there's been a lot of things going on in the news. Even as of yesterday, there's a pilot. I think it was Arizona.
Arizona.
Yeah, it was a pilot in Arizona. And I was reading that this morning. I woke up that he saw something. Then he caught a jet that was, about 15 miles, I think, ahead of him. And
it's like
he
3,000 feet right above him.
Yep, that one right there. So with all that being said, let's get right into it. But before we actually get started, I want you to talk to me more so about MUFON itself and the To the Stars Academy.
Well, MUFON started back around 1969, about May 31st, 1969. It was called the Midwestern. It was a Midwestern UFO group.
Yeah.
Then it became MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, which is now the largest of its kind around the world. It's got a pretty large collection of followers, individuals, participants. As investigators, we are all volunteers, so we have to pay for manuals, spend money to travel, do investigations. It's all on our own dime. As an investigator with MUFON, you don't get paid for this. So it just shows there's a lot of dedication. There's a lot of this is a very important topic. Something every time I speak to an investigator, they all say that the most important thing they can think of is answering this question: is why we're here and what is this all about? And I have to agree. I know that there's a stigma about it.
Yeah.
Where people say, hey, it's a bunch of kooks and stuff. There's no way the UFOs exist. And it's like, you know what, man? If you can add 1 + 1. And you do a little bit of math and you learn about the Drake equation, you'll find out that the only answer, the only probability is the abundance of life flourishing about the universe and the vastness of the infinite.
I feel that for someone to say that we're the only ones here is an idiotic statement.
It's ignorant.
There's 100 billion galaxies out there, and you think that we're the only living conscious beings alive? That's complete stupid. I don't believe that at all.
Right.
I'm with you 100%.
And what's interesting is every year, right, we learn of a new number. Scientists and astronomers come out and they say, hey, now the number is 100 billion. Now it's 1 trillion galaxies.
The last I heard was possibly 2 trillion.
See what I'm saying?
Galaxies.
The number only goes up; it doesn't go down.
And then if you understand quantum physics, you could have other dimensional realities. There may be a different vibrational plane where you have another 2 trillion galaxies. They're just overlaid each other, but because they're at different frequencies, you don't see them, but sometimes they bleed over, and maybe that's what ghosts and some of these phenomena are about. It's almost like the Matrix, where there's a glitch in the Matrix. But if you know quantum physics postulates, I think recently, it's 20 dimensions. And so, and they say the different dimensions might be so small they collapse on each other, and they're smaller than your hand. But who's to say that our galaxy, our universe, is not the size of a hand to somebody else in a bigger universe?
And I believe Michio Kaku mentioned that there is, they theorize that a new universe is born every second. Could you
That
imagine?
is fucking crazy.
You can
So
imagine that.
it's 2 things you said, and I want to ask both of you this question right here. Then I'll turn over to Mac to start talking because I'm talking way too much. You, the Drake equation. You, the Matrix, the movie, and how it relates to daily life. So I'll let whoever wants to go first, please. Yeah, we both said a lot. It's both very interesting.
Yeah, man.
Well, the Matrix was just, and it was the thing that impressed me about the Matrix, and I've watched it like the Avengers. I've watched it probably 25 times, and I always get something new out of it. But the Matrix was just a way to get you to think outside of the box. The greatest thing about the Matrix was that they had this idea that you're living in a simulated program that was fleshed out in such a way that it was so interesting that when they finally broke out of it and realized what reality actually was, it's like, wow, that's just something I didn't even imagine. I didn't even think of that. My brain never worked in that direction. And then all of a sudden you start seeing these things in the paper about, well, scientists say that we're living in an advanced aliens matrix. We're part of a computer program. And even if we are, it kind of doesn't matter if if this is all about your personal existence and what you experience, and you don't get to know that or never find out, or even if you do, you still got to live your life and be yourself and not worry about these types of things,
Right.
Yeah, you still not to cut you off, but you still experience things like hunger, thirst, love, hate.
Right.
So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's interesting is I often wonder if you didn't have to worry about going to work every day to make money, to pay bills, buy your food. If you didn't need to do all that and you just had all the money you needed and you're already exhausted, hookers and hand grenades and all the other things you might do with it, right? You get past all that, you're going to start asking yourself, what's it all about, And every human being, I think, if they had the right, perhaps, uprising culture or mental attitude to say, hey, listen, life is not about, being in a gang and getting into fights and forcing your way to the top and, cheating people out of money or climbing the ladder, the proverbial climbing the ladder kind of thing.
Keep preaching.
You know what I'm saying? If life was more about, hey, how about some peace and love and understanding, and let's think about why are there so many cultures on this planet? Is it possible we all come from different planets? Is it possible that every single culture on this planet originates from a different star?
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Just to get a little deep on you there.
Yeah, you better blow my goddamn mind.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
I already have trouble with this, man.
You know what I'm saying? This is what goes through my mind. This is what's been going through my mind for a long, long time. This is what drives me, because I'm a firm believer that this earth is an experiment. We are all being placed here to see if we can get along. And so far we've been failing, but we've also been growing. So I think there's a percentage of the earth's population that has evolved, and there's a percentage that has not evolved. And I'm talking about the 1% that are controlling the wars on this planet, not to get off topic. But the fact that there is such a diversity on this planet, it naturally breeds war and fighting, and you look different than me, therefore we can't agree, that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
But there is a large percentage, I believe, out there that does want to work together. I think it's the 1%ers that don't. You know what I'm saying? Because culturally, I think that across the world, we have UFOs in common in every single continent, every single state. There is not a single part on this planet that has not had a UFO, either a cave painting, a person witnessing something, a photograph, or a story.
This is very true.
So as a world, a humanitarian, idea, how about ufology? You know what I'm saying?
God damn.
That's deep, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Definitely deep.
It's like almost like this whole universe is, or this whole world is like an episode of Black Mirror, like I said earlier.
Right. And now I'm segueing back into the Drake equation, because basically, was it Edward Drake? Is his name Edward Drake?
No, it was Frank
Drake. I'm a little messed up in my head right now. So, everybody listening, please do not take every word I'm saying as fact, but let me just prompt you into a certain direction. Check out Frank Drake and the Drake equation. It's being updated every year. And basically, in a nutshell, what it is that he postulated that if we as humanity equals 1, and you multiply that by the known universe, what is the probability of life? And at first, he came up with something ridiculous like 1%, which represented like thousands and thousands of probabilities of other life forms. And each year it would get updated and updated. Now we're somewhere.
They added to the equation.
In the millions.
Basically, it was how many planets have life? How many planets have
the
life
Goldilocks
that's
Yeah,
zone.
the Goldilocks zone. I'm familiar with that one.
How many lives have consciousness that survive to get technology? How many start to travel the stars? How many survive their own atomic age? And it goes on. And when you factor it in, a lowball figure was 100 million civilizations in our galaxy alone.
And here's another idea, too. Whenever you look up at the sky, not all, but many, if not most, stars you see are suns that have planets you can't see going around them.
This is right.
And this is how they're discovering so many Goldilocks.
Could be somebody
zones
on
like
that little dot staring back at us going, I wonder.
I wonder who's out there.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
That's the dot you don't see.
Star, though,
the dot you don't see, you know what I'm saying? Because you see the sun, you don't see the planet.
And now we're at 13.5 billion years since the Big Bang or whatever that event was, What's interesting about that, if you really want to get deep, but I've studied remote viewing.
Go deep, please.
I've done remote viewing. I've actually had my consciousness separate from my body and do witness events and travel.
Are you talking about astral projection?
Yeah, astral projection and remote viewing are very similar. But remote view God, he found that it was a singularity, which was the Big Bang, and it was lonely, and so it exploded to get more life.
Loneliness does suck, doesn't it? Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah, that's dude, that's absolutely crazy. How did you? So you say you astral projector, or you say remote? What was it? Remote viewing?
Yeah, it's basically one of the things, several things that fascinate me. My degree is psychology, but I read a lot. I have a lot of random knowledge about a lot of random things, but I really got into Carlos Castaneda's books about learning from a shaman in Mexico, which, may be fiction, may not be, but people don't remember these books. In the 70s, he was on the cover of Time magazine. It was the best-selling book in the world, Tales of Power and things like this. And I got interested in this type of other consciousness that was the Toltec religion, the shamans from the old ages, from way back, thousands of years. And it's in every culture that they're wizards or whatever. And, it's not somebody that has special powers. It's somebody that's in touch with consciousness. So anyway, you fast forward to, I started getting into reading about remote viewing when that came out. And in college, I learned a very deep transcendental meditation technique that enabled you to center on all the points of your body that are touching the bed, and you do breathing. Basically, you synchronize your brain into one tone. And then I read the Robert Monroe books, Journey Out of Body, where the Faber Institute in Virginia was the place that the government, the $25 million remote viewing program, sent their people to learn remote viewing to Faber, Virginia, to learn this thing called hemisync.
Oh, hold on a second. I had to interrupt you right there. There's a program from the government, $25 million
for remote
to learn
viewing.
Remote viewing.
Yeah.
What year?
This is the 80s.
80s. Oh,
yeah.
A lot of crazy shit happened in the 80s.
Right here in Virginia, out of Fort Meade, but
in Fort Belvoir also.
Fort Belvoir,
Yeah,
it was
Fort
the
Belvoir.
headquarters
Okay.
of the remote viewers.
That's right in our backyard.
And if you ever
Yeah, exactly.
want to see a great movie about it, it's The Men Who Stare at Ghosts.
Man, Sarah Ghost was George Clooney.
That was
Okay.
true. If you see the copy that they with the extras on it, the guy says people don't realize how much of this movie is actually true. This all happened exactly like it's portrayed in the
Well, in
movie.
the 80s, just real quick, they were using remote viewers to find terrorists where they were being held hostage.
The Iran hostages were found with remote viewers, basically.
Holy, you mean the Iran like 19? What was it?
During Reagan's era.
Yeah, that was probably 77 or so.
82.
Yeah,
No,
it might
that
be
was Jimmy
older.
Carter in 77.
Yeah, okay, 80s. Yeah.
80s. And that was found with remote viewing.
Remote viewers, yeah. And I've talked to the number one remote viewer. What happened, this guy,
John McMonagle.
Robert Monroe, wrote these books called Journey Out of the Bodies, and he spontaneously left his body his whole life. He knew when he would die. He actually, saw himself in the past as a Roman warrior pinned to the ground with a spear through his chest. And there's a lot of books I started reading about reincarnation and things. There was actually a professor at University of Virginia that struck out to debunk reincarnation and ended up writing a book called Many Lives, Many Masters, where he almost
Many Masters,
proved,
Many Lives.
Yeah,
actually,
where he almost proved reincarnation.
Excellent book. Highly recommend that book.
But
Might have
anyway,
jot that down.
remote viewing is, and I learned this for myself as a fact, and I'm just saying this personally, but I realized that there was my consciousness and my perceptions could detach from my body and go witness events. And remote viewing, you're able to do that without regard to time or space. You can go back in the past, you can go in the future. And I experienced it 4 separate occasions myself, where actually one time I witnessed events, and when I told the person who was in those events what happened, they're like, how the hell did you know that? And I'm like, I was near the ceiling, floating near the ceiling. I could still feel my body and my bed. I was bilocated. So I knew I was laying in bed breathing, but on the other hand, the rest of me was floating in this room 10 miles away witnessing these events.
So let me ask everyone here at this table, because you brought up a great point, and I just want to touch on this one. You see, you had sirens in the back.
Yeah, they're about to come and get you.
Yeah,
You didn't want to be safe.
We
in your
in
car.
DC, baby.
Men in Black coming for me.
Right. You already talking about.
So this is what I've heard before about just time in general, that time is it's no such thing as the past, present, or future. That time is linear. So myself, I've had dreams, nothing crazy. Maybe myself drinking at a water fountain, or myself driving somewhere. And, I wouldn't remember the dream when I wake up. But when I experienced that event weeks later, I'm like, oh, shit, I saw this in a dream.
Deja vu?
Would that be... Deja vu is like remember the past, though. Like, I've been here before. So is there a difference between that? I guess you could bring a deja vu, too, and lucid dreaming.
So the dream happened before the event?
The dream happened, like, it'd be anything crazy. It'd be like, like a 9/11 type event. It'll be just like, it could be us here, just sitting there. And it may be a dream like, oh, I had a dream about this last week. And I only remember it in that moment.
Well, if you dreamed before it happened, that's precognition. So that's seeing a few moments ahead.
Okay.
Which, if time is more
Or just
of
some
a,
really good weed.
time, I think, is a-
I'm looking at the camera right now. I am clean. If you want to piss test me, come on, baby. Make it happen. Please
time
go
is
on.
a human construction, really. I think it's kind of made up.
Construct, yeah.
With Einstein's theory, that as
okay.
you approach the speed of light, time slows down to almost nothing. If you left at the speed of light, came back, 100 years might pass, and you were gone in an hour. I mean, you have this thing called entropy, where you can see things age. Like if you eat a bite of a fruit and set it down, it'll turn brown, it'll start to degrade. That's entropy. So things kind of, that's what we kind of equate to time. Over time, something ages. We age over time. But I'm not sure if that's just not something we invented. Time could be this long line that you can step anywhere on it.
Well, also the
Past,
effects
present,
of
future.
time have to do with the amount of radiation we're absorbing too. If we had more filtration, there wouldn't appear.
When you start breaking down
older.
everything into a quantum level of, it's really interesting if you understand string theory and things like that. Everything is energy. Every single thing here is energy. It's just in a certain form, a certain vibration. And so everything you have, this is a cup because your mind's perceiving it as a cup, but it's really energy sitting there.
But you know what comes to mind when y'all start talking about that, man? Yeah, I remember that movie was it Interstellar?
Oh, that was classic.
Was
Yeah.
it Matthew McConaughey in it? Man, everything you're talking about, the vibrations, how he was like looking at the bookshelf because his
They
vibrations.
copied everything
It was
from us.
himself, yeah.
I mean, that movie, man, hit it on the head, and like everything you're talking about, I'm like just thinking, like, wow, they were on to something. It wasn't
We
just
actually
like
introduced that movie when it came out up in Leesburg.
At the theater, yeah.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah?
He got laryngitis and couldn't speak,
Man,
and I was drunk.
I had me a double shot of Tito's and Cran, right?
Hey, shout out to that. That's some
You know
good
what I'm
shit.
saying? And I drank. Listen, man, it was messed up. I drank the drink, and I said,
I can't speak.
Hey, any more of y'all events y'all have, please give us an invite.
Oh yeah, I'll be more than
sure.
happy to come out there.
For real, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do presentations and things at conferences, so we'll let you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Let's hold a sec. We have a great point going on here. Go on, Mac. I don't want to interrupt you from there.
Oh, that was it, man. The interstellar part. Yeah, I was.
Okay, so this
Take it back.
so this one I asked right here. Does our Earth move at a certain vibration?
Absolutely, everything does.
So a vibration, can that be also seen as like a frequency, like a radio station?
Yeah, everything's a frequency.
Yeah, everything's a frequency. You know, radio station frequencies are probably a little bit lower. You know, you got your different bands. You know,
So I'm using that as an example because I'm trying to get
but
to
the Earth vibration, like what
Okay.
you're saying, though,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
much lower. It's almost like sub levels, like
Oh.
just very very low resonance.
Depends on how you're measuring it. The solar system is traveling through space at like I think it's 500,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
And
Everything's
so
moving
and
incredibly fast.
then we have planets rotating about a sun, but the whole thing is speeding through space.
All the planets got
And
vibrations.
I
and
read
everything.
a really interesting book where, you know, because we have a magnetic core, there's probably frequencies that we don't hear, but the planets, as they rotate around and get close to each other, on some level they might
The pitch change.
sing to each other.
Yeah, the pitches
You
change.
know, and they know each is there. And you get to this, there's this thing, I can't remember what the term is, but there's this thing that says the Earth is a living organism.
Ooh.
And so if you think about it, I think it's Gaia.
Right.
Not to be confused with that
Right.
horrible website, but it's you know, it's that the Earth is a
God's
living
like Mother
organism,
Earth.
which makes sense because it kind of has a heart, which is the mantle. It has these things growing on it, produces all life, and then the Earth. It's kind of interesting to think that the planets, as they revolve, kind of like call out and sing to each other.
You know what they're saying when they're passing each other? I got these bastards, these humans living on me.
Yeah,
Fucking
exactly.
Parasites.
How do y'all get rid of these things?
Hey,
Gonna
hey
shrug the
Mars, you
crust.
want them?
And Jupiter's like, why do you think I got so much lava on here, man? I just melted all them fools a long time ago.
So I like where we're going down right now. We're talking about the planets. Actually, no. I want to finish my last thoughts. 'Cause I was getting somewhere. So if we're operating at a very low frequency right now, is it possible for somebody to tune that frequency and come across a different Earth?
Well, it's interesting because I think that's how a lot of either psychics or parasite
Mediums.
mediums, the people that can actually see and talk to ghosts and things like this, you know, have their brains like an antenna. He's got a little bit more receptor than I do, of course. You know, he's been
Remote viewing.
pretty in tune to these things, right? I'm pretty dull to them, but I understand what's going on. And whenever I speak to people, and I know I have a lot of friends that communicate with ghosts and things like this. And it's kind of weird because they have a certain energy about them. You can kind of feel it. You can feel that there's something different about those people. And I don't doubt it one bit.
No,
We
I
did
don't.
a ghost
We're
hunt.
done. Them omens.
Oh, Mac, tell your Omen story. Why we here?
Oh shoot! You really want to hear that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ooh, sounds scary.
No, it's not. It's not scary, man. It was just I don't know where it started from, but like I had these dreams before, like when I was younger, and it was like to the point where like it would always have my friends, anybody's having babies or whatnot, and it would tell me like what they're having. Like I'm thinking to myself, like it's a 50-50 chance. You can't get that wrong. I mean, like you can get lucky sometimes.
Unless you can predict the hermaphrodite, and then that'd be special.
It has both.
They'd be like,
Good. They had
"You're
a baby
crazy."
X.
Hey, baby girl, I get wet and hard.
Take your pick.
This is messed up.
But
right
like,
there.
I went on a streak, man. I don't even know what to call it, man. It's just like all the way up until about 2013, 2014 when we leave Oklahoma, 2016. Man, this is the whole anybody having kids, man. I can go ahead and tell them, hey, dude, this is what you're having, and it was like surefire a way to go. That's it.
You can
And
put money on it.
I'd put my own kids on it. Like, yeah, I guess both his kids. But who else? It was a lot of people were in Oklahoma asking, who do you think I'm gonna have?
Yeah, you had people come ask you about it.
And then I was never wrong. It was all don't have those dreams anymore, man. I think the alcohol got to me, but it sings a different song. It's more like what's happening on Call of Duty and why is this kid saying my mom was with him last night? So the story, man, it's just a lot of like the dreams were just like really vivid. It'd be pointing straight out, like, oh yeah. It wouldn't say Ricky, but it have like things that had to do with Ricky about it. it's hard to explain, man. And then that's why I feel like I don't get those dreams
Dreams
anymore.
are weird. It's almost like a third dimension you go into.
It's crazy.
And the more I've studied dreams, beyond what Freud said and things like that, the more interesting it becomes. Because one of the things that I found fascinating about, and I tried it, was when I read Carlos Castaneda's books. He said that they got their power from dreaming, where they could actually wake up in their dreams and perform feats. And so he said the key to that was when you start dreaming, zoom in on your hands and start looking at your fingers and hold them up in front of your face. And that way you can hold the dream and not just go into a dream or a lucid dream. But every time you start to get in, the dream slips, pull your hands in front of your face and look at it. It's so hard to do that. And even the author of the book said it took him 2 years to do that. And I found one time I got to look at my hands in my dream, and I got so fascinated with leaping 40 to 50 feet and flying that I forgot that I could do other things. Because every time I have lucid dreaming or travel out of body, I get into flying. And it distracts me from the fact that I can probably go anywhere and witness events, but I like flying in my dreams. It's kind of like in the pool when you can jump off the bottom and kind of, it's this feeling of weightlessness. It's really cool. But I'm losing, I'm not focusing on what I should be focusing on if I'm actually traveling out of body.
What's interesting about that is that Nikola Tesla, George Washington, Einstein, all these amazing people in history had similar kinds of stories to tell.
Voices, kind of.
And they would use the terminology dreams, right? Because maybe that's what other people would understand the most.
Right.
You're in D.C. when you got
exactly.
signs going
I
on
told
in
you.
the background.
I
know
told
you're in
you.
D.C.
That's exactly why I love it. Just let it ride out. Even in the last show
as long as they're not coming for us, we're cool.
I don't know. We're talking about some crazy shit right now, baby. But you know what? I absolutely love it. Please finish your thought.
That was it, pretty much. I mean, just that, what Ben was describing when it comes to dreams, that many greats in history would use similar verbiage to describe how they were inspired and how they
came to me in a dream. Yeah.
Right.
Tesla, Einstein all said it was like almost divine providence. Mm-hmm. And then you have to wonder if they're just on this frequency where they're picking up something. I know Einstein, when they dissected his brain, he had more gluons than almost any brain they've ever seen. And gluons are kind of a conductivity material in the brain that makes it work better. So maybe you use 50% of your brain, like most of us use 50%. Einstein was able to tap into 75%. But a lot of famous people, Da Vinci was the same, said he would have these 3 days where he couldn't remember anything, but then he started drawing. He'd draw parachutes and flying machines and things like that. And so it's interesting that some of the greatest geniuses got these visions not through scholarship, but through dreams and voices.
So where does all that energy come from?
You used to call it the ether. Now it could be
The ether, like Thor.
No, like
Thor
a
Nas.
dimension that everybody can tap into.
Okay.
Freud would have called it the supermind. There's this. It's called the Archaic record, I think, where you can
record.
You can tap into
right.
the mind. All our minds are connected to a great library, and if you can tap into the library, you can know anything from the past, present, and future.
Because if you think about it, every thought that you have is an electrical impulse. And I know most of your thoughts are dirty, but that's still cool, though, But even the dirty thoughts are adding to the collective mind, because
The library.
This library, right? Because almost all the ideas that we're thinking about today were possibly available in previous civilizations, you see. And as these civilizations get wiped out, the Akashic record is retaining all these ones and zeros, all these bits, all these electrical impulses that are quote-unquote thoughts. And then as new civilizations come online into this experiment of Earth, so to speak, in my opinion, they're able, as people develop their minds and become more spiritually minded, they're able to tap into this Akashic record, become inspired, or just, some people are just naturally gifted. They don't even know why, but they've been chosen to receive this download, so to speak, like Nikola Tesla, like Einstein. They don't know why. They just have these thoughts, and they just couldn't stop working on those ideas. And when you have amazing people like that in history, you almost have to really psychoanalyze every granular detail that you can to try to find out what makes them so unique.
It's almost like we're all radios and we're tuned onto one channel. Some people can change that channel 2 or 3 times.
And they're able to tap in some information. They get that cool station we don't get.
Yeah. So where are all these records stored at, and how do people access them?
Can you ask that question?
It's only through the mind, which is I think the mind is the true other dimension. I think our minds are a quantum computer, and what the way your brain works and the way you tie into things is on this whole nother level, because all the great computers we build can't do what our mind can do yet. And so a quantum computer and a quantum mind can be present in all the different realities that we exist in. You know, it knows the energy level, the radiation level, the frequency level, whatever it may be. And so if you kind of get to that level, then everything makes sense. You have, if we all came from a big bang, we all started as singularity and expanded to everything we are. Well, we all are tied to that big bang, maybe, you know, the birth of the star type thing. If we're all connected, then it kind of makes sense that we're all connected to everything. Every single thing that's ever happened, everything you could possibly think of doing, we're all connected because we all came from the stars. We're all stardust.
Can I bring something up before? I know, Tony, you better go in. But it's something I saw a picture of, a brain cell in the universe.
Same.
How they look, very similar.
It looks very similar.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, the digital neural net, so to speak, looks a lot like our universe.
Exactly.
And there is some strong correlation to that, you know, because there's just basically geometric shapes and patterns in nature within our universe and the things that we see and feel every day that we don't realize. Is like nothing is unique as it is diversified. You know, it's like everything is. It's always been there. It's always been there, and we're just rediscovering a lot of these things that we think are new, but they've really been there forever. And by rediscovering them, the closer we get to answering that proverbial question, the closer we are to actually leaving this planet. You know, but I think we're going to be stuck here for a long time.
Now you mean? I'm sorry, Mac. You about to say something?
Actually, I lost it, man.
So
Y'all got it, man.
That's why actually you said leave this planet. What do you mean?
Right. I think that before we're allowed to actually leave and take our trash out to the universe, you know, we have to be able to reach a certain, Ben, you've mentioned it many times before, there's a certain spiritual level that we're not going to go out and kill everything that we see, kind of thing.
Kind
you know?
of being conscious of being compassionate and humanitarian.
Your analogy of a confederate, you know, galactic confederacy, you mentioned a few things about that before, remember?
Well, just, it's like what Stanton Friedman would say, you know, we haven't graduated yet to the galactic confederacy because we still kill each other. So if there's a presence here monitoring us, there's a good reason, because we're still militaristic. We still kill each other, but we're beginning to travel space.
Right. As I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you caught on to this, but there's a great film called UFOs and Nukes by Robert Hastings. I highly recommend it to your listeners.
Okay.
It talks about in great detail how across the globe UFOs have been present on nuclear sites. They have actually disabled and actually started a nuclear countdown and almost started World War III, stopped it. When the presence of these UFOs left, the systems came back online.
Why is that? Why they started then?
It's a very good question. You know, a lot of this interesting turmoil took place way back in during the development of the atomic age and the atomic bomb that we dropped on Hiroshima.
Yeah, 45.
Right. So over in Roswell, New Mexico, you know, that area was used for testing of the atomic bomb, and therefore we got the attention of the powers that be, or you know, aliens, what have you. And we started getting a lot of UFO sightings. There were these, what's called flaps, is when we have a period of time where we have such an abundance of UFO sightings that you can't explain it. In D.C., it happened in the 50s. It also happened again in the 70s, and in the 80s was enormous, especially 1980, because we had the Rendlesham flap out there in the UK, and our friend Colonel Holt, who we've talked to many times, gave us intimate detail on his encounter and what happened the night before. I won't get into that, but
Can we not get into that because of a certain reasons, or
it just takes about a couple hours.
Okay, so let's take it all the way back. All right, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, atomic bomb, Japan.
Right.
That happened.
Right.
1947 Roswell. What happened? I know you're not gonna tell me weather balloon, because I don't want to hear that shit. Like the same way I don't want to hear a magic bullet went into Kennedy. I don't want to hear that either.
It's a very there's a lot of contention as to what exactly happened. Many books have been written on the subject. Tom Carey, we spoke to him. You know, he wrote a great book about it. Interviewed tons and tons of people, and then it came out later that these people were falsifying their testimony, and you know, just really throwing a huge monkey wrench into the whole investigation. But in my opinion, I think something did go down there. We were just starting up our radio frequencies and our radar systems, and we were just shooting all kinds of electrons out into our atmosphere. And what's interesting,
Where is this out of? Just what state?
Mexico.
New Mexico.
Yeah,
Okay.
around the Midwest, so to speak. We
So-
have the most sightings in the Midwest.
So that's interesting that we started shooting out of there, and then the first thing we saw was
A UFO coming down.
out of that same area.
Yeah, there was a lot of storms in that time frame from June and July, and there was a really heavy storm. So it was thought that it could have been lightning, it could have been the radars, just bombarding our stratosphere with electrons at the same time.
Mhm.
But what we do know is that something metallic came down.
Well,
It's-
let's talk about this before I go back in that. So we started shooting off. You said radio frequencies or electrons?
Electrons.
Right.
Electrons.
Mm.
Okay. How fast do electrons travel?
Shoot, man, I don't know.
Electrons is on. It's going like I think it's the same speed as vibration and sound, if I'm not mistaken.
That's faster than the speed of light, isn't it?
Not electrons. I think it's. I could be mistaken, but we have Google, man, for this. So I can
Right.
probably look this
Hey.
up, but
Live feed. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and turn that thing off. You can watch the rest of this from the podcast. Thanks. Love you, baby.
BLACKSnYAC, y'all tune in. Thank you.
Oh,
So electrons traveling. So they sent these signals out there, and something came back.
Are we on a commercial?
No, it's no commercials here.
Commercial
break.
Oh, he was playing the live feedback.
Oh.
So we sent electrons out there, and something came back.
Right.
Does that indicate friendly, maybe aggressiveness, or what do you think?
Well, what's interesting is because, the argument I've heard many people say is like, if they're so intelligent and they're so great out there, how is it that our radars can bring them down? And here's the deal. I've noticed a progression in technology from old UFOs to new, right? You had the old nuts and bolts UFOs, and a lot of those were fake. They were fake models and things like this. But some of them that appeared metallic were kind of like morphing plasma. And there's just so much to talk about. I mean, we can go on for like 24, 48 hours on the subject straight up. And not to confuse anybody, but what I think spawned a lot of the fakes was the misinterpretation of the real stuff they were seeing. And that's why all of these fake nuts and bolts UFOs that were being photographed back in the day were so prominent. And then the real deal ones were the ones that were exhibiting propulsion evidence, and excited ions around the craft, which would cause that haze like you see in the summertime over the road.
Yeah.
When it looks kind of hazy.
Okay,
It's
okay.
like it's energy coming off the road. So when you see stuff like that around an object at a distance, and part of it looks like it's cutting the thing in half or something like that because there's so much energy around it that the ionized air around it is causing this distorted light look. And then if you see like different colors of plasma, like purples and kind of oranges emitting from a particular object, that's sign of propulsion, which means that whatever that is, it's giving off its own energy. It's not just some sort of model being suspended by like a fishing line or something like this that you can't really see very well, reflecting light, so people get all in awe of the shiny metallic object, and they're like, ooh, it's got to be real, look, it's reflecting sunlight. It could be a model. It could be anything.
Mhm.
You need a lot more evidence. You need evidence of propulsion, and that's what we look for the most. Not to segue in so many different avenues, and we were
this
just
is
talking
good.
about something else
Yeah,
earlier.
this
but-
leads into everything we was talking about.
Gotcha.
Roswell, something came back. Like I already talked about, because I got to bring it back for Ben right here since he left out take a piss.
Right,
Got to bring
right.
it back a little bit. Sorry,
Right,
everybody
right,
out
right.
there.
That's the
everybody.
one call you always have to answer. Nature.
Hey,
Well,
and next
what's-
time, piss on yourself.
Real quick, to answer our question earlier,
Hmm.
man, about how fast do electrons travel? It's about 2,200 kilometers per second, and that's judging by Google, it's less than 1% of the speed that it takes for light to travel.
So basically, anybody can see it.
Yeah, anybody can see it. And then it kind of brings me to my next question, man. So like, with it be, you said it was New Mexico when we're shooting it off.
Yeah.
When you look at I look at a lot of like YouTube channels and stuff, just to kind of see what everybody else is seeing over there, and most of anytime I see any kind of like sightings or whatnot, it's over there in that area. So
That's right. It's interesting because we were just there. Was it a couple years ago? 2 years ago?
For
For
Socorro?
the Socorro thing. Was that
2013. We're going back
yeah.
next month.
And that's what
Hey, let's get into that.
Yeah, because what happened was we were checking out. We're going to get into the Socorro case. I mean, not to segue away from Roswell, that's important as well. But this particular case is, like, in my opinion, 100 times more important than Roswell.
Why is that?
Evidence.
We have
A lot of
so much evidence. I'll let Ben speak
Okay.
a little bit about that.
Before I tell you what, before we get into so much evidence, let's finish up Roswell real quick so we can just knock that out. That we can compare the both together.
Can you finish Roswell though?
Yeah, Ben, talk a little bit about Roswell, and I mentioned Tom Kerr a little bit.
Here's the thing about Roswell. It's funny that, in psychology, you learn that a lot of times when people are kind of pressed, the first thing they say is the truth. And with Roswell, I believe that when Colonel Blanchard released that statement, it said, "We found a flying disc," that was the truth. And everything else past that was a lie.
Hold a second. I don't want to interrupt you, but who is Colonel Blanchard?
Well, they put together a press release. Colonel Blanchard was the one that authorized it, but they basically, found this object in Roswell in '47 and brought it back.
Mac Brazel.
Mac Brazel was the rancher who found it, reported it.
That's
It took him about 5 or 6 days to get out there. Jesse Marcel went out. Daniel Cavett, who of course says he never went out, but probably wasn't telling the truth. And anyway, they got this material that had these unusual properties. But the press release was prepared in such a way that it had gotten the clearance that this hadn't hit Washington yet. And so they released saying, "We've captured a flying disc in Roswell, New Mexico." And that's exactly what probably happened. Then the Pentagon texted them and said, "Stop reporting right away." They were about to do another story where they were interviewing the witness, and they said, "If you transmit this story, you'll lose your license." It was not the CIA at the time, but the bottom line is something very unusual happened at Roswell. All the records from that year were destroyed. When Governor Schiff, the New Mexico governor, looked into it, who surprisingly died of cancer, fast-acting cancer, like a lot of ufologists seem to do.
Yeah.
But he investigated it, and the government accounting arm, the investigative arm of the government, looked into it and said all the records were destroyed. They couldn't find anybody that had the authority to do that. But it's really weird if this was a weather balloon that they eliminated all the documents.
Why has that always happened? Like in the moon landing video, that it was overwritten with something crazy. That all these amazing events in history just happen to get destroyed for some crazy reason.
There is probably a I don't call it cabal, but there's probably a top secret compartmentalized part of the government that doesn't answer anybody, and we can prove it because you can't see how much the black budget is, and your senators can't ask about it.
We're talking about trillions missing.
Yeah, it's what Eisenhower warned us of, becoming too black with these projects where you don't know what the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
We're talking about black, not like BLACKSnYAC, but you're talking about black.
Yeah, I mean,
BLACKSnYAC.
if you want
that was
to
a
do
little plug for you.
Hey,
There.
we're not funding anybody.
If you want to do a little history lesson, there was a time when a president, wanted to go to Area 51 before it was called that. He was denied that. He said, "I will bring the army to your door if you don't let me in." They let him in. He toured the facility, and he came back and he didn't talk about it.
Oh my fucking!
So I won't say what the president
God.
was. That's a good story to look up. But
What year was this?
50s. We found Groom Lake in that area in the 50s.
I feel like Eisenhower was a very underrated president.
Eisenhower knew a lot about what was going on. The president had the briefing, and what's interesting is I got to give Jimmy Kimmel credit for always hammering the presidents when they come on, because he tells them in advance. But he had Clinton, Obama, Bush, and I think it was Dick Cheney, and he hit them with the UFO question.
What Clinton said was crazy.
Clinton started grabbing the chair. He got all nervous. He was like, and as soon as they got off topic, he relaxed. I mean, he was clearly giving you the signs that it's something he couldn't talk about. Bush just said, "I can't talk about it." Obama said, "If it's true, I wouldn't be able to talk about it." And Dick Cheney gave the worst answer of all. He goes, "Well, if we had a program like that, it'd be classified top secret, and I wouldn't be able to tell you about it." Instead of saying no, he went through all of that.
He told you
and
exactly what it
obviously
was.
saying
This is
that
exactly what it'll be.
Yeah, it's classified, and I can't talk about it.
Right.
So it's what a lot of people that have been deep inside other governments, Canadian government, other governments have found out. They go, "Look, this subject's classified above everything else," and they will not talk about it. And if you threaten to talk about it, they'll come back and threaten you with your life, your livelihood, your career,
Your
everything.
kids.
Yeah, and they'll discredit you. And there's been a lot of cases where they've discredited people that say they were in the Army, they witnessed things, and they go, he was never in the Army, he never did that. And the guy will come out with his photos and his documents and prove he was there. And, it was, it was just an error in our documents or whatever. But that's the big thing now, and it kind of ties into the Two Stars Academy, is that they will find, I think that Two Stars Academy has their hearts in the right places, but I think they become the new vehicle for disinformation to be disseminated to the public, because they're not. Tom DeLonge probably has his heart in the right place, but he doesn't know the field. He's made a lot of mistakes. He's promoted videos as UFO that was proven as CGI fakes. He said a lot of things that he actually had to retract from his accounts because it was kind of out there.
Okay. So this is what I wanted. This is what I actually brought up to you as well too. How do you tell a real video from a fake?
Well, it's like what he was talking about. You look for, in the CGI field, it's kind of easy to see insertions and things where there's cutouts around objects that are inserted. You film a clear sky, then you insert an object. There's a lot of ways to see that.
In CGI also, it's really difficult to get the physics right.
Yeah, the shadowing, the movement. The best videos, really, we like applying new technology to videos from the 60s and before. And photographs, like the Trent photograph is a great example. The Trent photograph shows
out of McMinnville, Oregon.
Yeah, it shows it's a disc that was photographed twice by a farmer. It was under his couch for months. It's still known as one of the best UFO pictures ever taken. But it's a disc with two different pictures, and underneath is a downflow, just like they described when it tilted towards them. They were hit with a blast of hot air, and our friend Ray Stanford had done a video analysis of that, and it looks like there's some kind of a plasma discharge.
You can actually see like torsion,
like a tornado coming out from beneath the craft. And this was taken in '54, and so nobody in '54 is going to think, "Well, I got to add a distortion under the craft."
Yeah, exactly.
So when you apply new technology to older pictures, and you get there's a famous white cylindrical missile-shaped object with a trail flying over a river. That's a photo from '57, I think, taken by an engineer. It has no wings or anything, and I can't think of anything that's just white with a trail that we
looks
flew
like
in
a
57.
giant dirigible.
But the picture, when you look at the picture and blow it up, it's reflected in the river, and nobody would have thought
wasn't it
to do that because
1800s, right? 1800s.
No, this is 1957.
Was it 1900s?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a really old photograph. But that's the kind of detail that would be really hard to fake, and the fact that you could, now with technology now you can make a picture much bigger and clean it up, and that thing is perfectly reflected in the river below it, tells you it's probably a real picture.
And right here in D.C., in our nation's capital, 1953, there was a flap of UFOs
right
over the Capitol.
Yep,
right?
That's right. I've seen that video.
The linear lights?
We had actual UFOs flying over the
There was
Capitol.
Formations.
Yeah.
It was videotaped.
Yep.
Even they call it a weather
Check that video
inversion. Yeah, but even the
Check it out. 1953.
Yeah, it was the front page of the Washington Post said saucers outran jets. That was the front page of the Washington Post, our local newspaper.
So here's the question: where are they coming from, and what do they want?
That's a great question, and the answer is they're coming from everywhere. They've been here forever, and they're going to be here after we're gone.
Why are they so interested in us?
Well, see, this is what I think. I think they're here to monitor us. I believe this is an experiment that we are living in. And I believe that, in my personal opinion, that, we got these other types of civilizations living, not necessarily inside the Earth, because, what was his name? Captain,
America.
No. What's his name?
Yeah, he almost buzzed in.
You're thinking of Bird. You're thinking of Bird.
Hey, this is Jeopardy, baby. I ain't know.
You're thinking General Bird.
Bird. He flew around the Earth, and he flew into the Earth, right? But what I think it was that as he got down near Antarctica, I think what it was is that the valleys were kind of opening up to him, and he just started kind of going into the Earth in such a way that the magnetic poles kind of shifted. So his inversion or inertia of gravity was reversed. And when you kind of it's like if this is the Earth, imagine if the Earth had like a slit like this, like in the navel, so to speak, and he flew into that. So he didn't fly to the center of the Earth, but he flew into maybe a part of it, maybe.
That sounds like Cotius interruptus.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
He kind of like an enema. He entered the Earth.
I tell you a good analogy for why they may be here, and some of it other people have talked about, but there was a great Star Trek episode, Next Generation. and the Romulans and the Klingons and everybody had discovered there was this secret on this planet. So they all rushed to this planet. I'll take some more tea. They all rushed.
Yeah, this is tea, by the way. I would never promote what we drink until y'all boys start giving us some dollars. I'm gonna give you some more. You guys still drink the shit you got in here.
That's backwash.
Hey, you did leave for a little bit, so I go ahead. I go pour you some more.
I made more room.
You already busted the seal, man. He can be leaving another 2 more times.
Hey, he's giving us good information.
Might get you right there.
So anyway, the Star Trek episode, they all raced to this planet to find the secret, and it was really a good idea. And it might have been Isaac Asimov, one of the famous science fiction writers that wrote this story. But the secret was that this civilization that originated on this planet had become high tech and started traveling to stars. And when they traveled to stars, there was nobody anywhere. So they said, well, we'll seed everything. And so the great secret was that everybody was related. The thing the Klingons and all didn't want to know, that they were related to humans. And the humans were related to Vulcans. And everybody else was related. And so if something like that happened, and there's a thing called panspermia, where organic material can travel to stars on comets.
Mm-hmm.
And that might have started life here. But if we all come from the same organic material, which means we might have 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, and that kind of thing, and that'd be a squid or something, then it makes sense that almost like Alien and the Alien movies, Covenant and all that, where you're checking up on your genetic code that you seeded out there to see where it goes.
But
that could be the reason.
I do. That brings up a good point. Again, I like to look at a lot of like any kind of documentaries, anything, and they had like one specifically talking to astronauts, what they see out there.
Right.
And one of the astronauts, man, they might have put this for dramatic effect, saying, "Oh yeah, he's on his dying bed," and he said he quoted, "They walk among us." And when you say that, they realize that they're all related. Do you think to a point that they would literally be walking among us around here in D.C., Virginia, North Carolina, Texas, like this?
That sounds a lot like our friend. What's his name? Doctor out of Maryland. He wrote the book Among Us. What's his name?
Not Resta.
No, the other guy. We had dinner with him. Remember? They're among us. It's called They Walk Among Us.
Rudiger? Doctor Strange?
No, wait. Yo, listen. In Arizona, the transsexual was hooking up with him. Remember?
Oh, Dr. Jacobs.
Oh wow! Hey, give me a gender and a location, and I can figure out anything.
You gotta tell that.
Didn't say that.
Name me a body part and anywhere in the world, and I'll tell you exactly who it was.
Dr. Gail Jacobs. No,
Dr. David Jacobs, he wrote this book called Walking Among Us, and talks about what you just said. About these alien hybrids that are walking among us, even here in D.C.
Like a shapeshifter?
I don't know, man. It could be just about anything, I suppose.
Are we getting down to reptilian?
Let's say
Sure.
reptilians.
He gets deep with all that. He gets deep with all that. That's not our specialty. We focus on the scientific aspect of ufology when it comes to analyzing photographs and evidence.
Okay, so let's go back to that. Let me walk you through. I want to walk you through from 1947 to today. So we are talking about Roswell. Let's talk about D.C. You said it's a hotbed. You keep mentioning Eisenhower, 52, 53. Please explain. And this is something I read too. I want to add this as well. That Eisenhower actually met with extraterrestrials and they made an agreement. If you know anything about that, please speak on that one as well.
Well, that's a bunch of. It's very possible, but we don't really have the actual proof for anyone that we can validate.
Understand?
Information.
Or are you lying to me?
It's a great story.
right. Interesting story, definitely.
I'm just saying that the way that Ben and I operate is like everything's a great story until you show us the evidence. You know what I'm saying? It's like because there's a lot of great stories out there. Now it's not that I disbelieve anybody, and I'll listen to every story that there is, and I will entertain every story. But at the end of the day, until you give me
the evidence,
hands-on evidence, it's nothing more than a story. And when I recant that story to somebody else, I'm like, hey, y'all want to hear a great story? Emphasizing the fact it's a story. If I say y'all want to hear about a true story, I'm gonna tell you the true story and why.
Yeah, it's part of the legend, and part of that story. It was either 54 or 64, or both years that occurred. It was at Holloman Air Force Base. One of the freeze frames, supposedly of the craft, was actually from a TV special. But they said that 3 bathtub-shaped craft came, one landed, and these beings got off with striped shirts, berets and long hook noses. And that right there is just so weird that if somebody made this up, it's like, really, but it, I don't know if it's true or not.
It was a really good
But
acid
what's
trip.
interesting about that
Yeah,
is
exactly.
the 64 landing. Some said that Socorro, which was also 1964, was they landed in the wrong place and they were out of, and then a few weeks later they landed at the right place and met with Eisenhower at Holloman Air Force Base, which was about 30 miles away from Socorro.
Okay.
Let me give them a quick synopsis though about Socorro because
Yeah.
I don't think they know about.
Well,
that.
Jose,
I know
I'll
about
correct
Socorro.
something real quick. Yeah, he knows a lot about it. You said 50. You said 54 and 64. That's what you said. 54, 64.
It could have been either or
No.
both years.
We said they met with Eisenhower.
Eisenhower or Truman. Who was it?
And 64 was Lyndon Johnson.
How do you know this?
64.
I keep it up here, baby.
It wasn't
Fuck.
Johnson. I remember that the president on his
was Eisenhower.
on his journal, I think it was Eisenhower, had a dental appointment that day, and they said that wasn't truly what happened. That he actually was cited at.
That's a great cover up.
Yeah, and so
Shout out to Jenny.
Dental.
what's interesting about Socorro, talking about Socorro, was that was a close encounter of the third kind.
Hey, take us through the synopsis really quick so everybody knows.
Socorro
Yeah, walk us
was
through it.
in April 22nd of 1964. Lonnie Zamora, a well-respected, sober police officer, was on random patrol. I think he was kind of parked. A speeder passed by him, a well-known kid in the neighborhood. He started chasing him, and Tony and I have followed this exact route that his car took. And so as he's chasing him, and you're eventually going northwest, but anyway, there's a desert to your right, the Socorro Desert. So he's chasing a speeder, and as he's chasing him, he sees what he thinks is maybe a plane that's coming down, cross over the road with a blue flame. And unbeknownst to him, 3 people had already called the police station before Lonnie started chasing this thing, saying, "I see a blue flame coming from Albuquerque towards."
From 5 p.m. to around 5:30.
Yeah, this all happened around 5:36 at night.
Okay.
So Lonnie goes off the path, and he
That's around
crests.
5:50, I believe it is.
Yeah, he
that.
starts chasing the object, thinking that something's crashing. He crests the hill. He briefly sees what he says are 2 white creatures in coveralls next to a craft that's down. At first he thought it was an overturned vehicle, but it was maybe a spherical-shaped craft. And then he takes 3 tries to get up the hill. He gets up at the top of the hill, comes down again, and the creatures are gone, but he sees an ellipsoid-shaped object with 4 landing gears sitting on the ground. And he gets out of his car, and he also witnesses a symbol on the side of the craft, which we've determined is an inverted V with 3 bars through it. And he hears a loud thump. And what's interesting is when he first saw the creatures, one of them looked startled. It's like, wow, there's a dude coming towards us.
And how tall were they?
And there was a creosote bush they were standing near, and the bush was 5 feet tall, and they didn't come up to the top. They were about 4.5 feet tall. And, as Ray would say, we didn't have midgets or little people flying black projects. We've never had that. And so when he got back to the vehicle, he heard a loud roar. He hit the ground. He heard 2 loud thumps, which he thinks are the creatures getting back into the craft, shutting a double-hulled door. And then the craft lifts up on a blue flame, and he recovers himself. He looks up. The blue flame rises up about 3 or 4 feet. It cuts off. It hovers for several seconds, no sound, and it starts moving towards what's called the Perlite Mill area, which is top secret Army controlled property now when you go out there and try to see what's out there. But it starts heading towards the mountains until it kind of reaches supersonic speed and goes straight up in the air. And there was 4 holes in the ground that were determined by maybe a 9-ton vehicle. There was the charred bushes that were charred by what seems to be subatomic particles at speed of light shot through the ground. The thing about this blue flame was it wasn't propellant. It didn't shoot smoke up. It just blew some sand. Lonnie got a little bit of heat, but it was a blue-orange flame, and it was some type of exotic propulsion that was not a propellant-type driven thing like we have. And then it turns silent. And to me, that sounds like most of the craft we send to other worlds. You have one major engine that gets you there.
Yeah.
Then you have another one that lands. And this one had the blue flame that landed it, but when it got up, that cut off, it was silent, and then it flew on something else. It'd probably go to a bigger ship.
So we think it's possible that maybe they had to park the car to check out the oil. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or they thought the dynamite shack was the bathroom.
And then they realized that someone's coming for them. They're like, we can make it to the next stop.
There was a white dynamite shack near there, and Ray always says they stopped to take a crap because they
Right.
thought it was an outhouse.
But
shit, that's
you know what
funny.
astonishes me though, when I heard that story, like he described the craft, and he said it was it looked like it was chrome, but when he got closer to it, it was white.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I mean, it's just a perfect cylinder. And
you imagine like that pearl, like a pearl
like a
inlay
pearl,
yeah.
like a
you
really
know.
really super shiny pearl.
Yeah.
And I can like vividly like see it almost. And then like the best part about this one, this happening, is the fact that like when they came to investigate, they could actually prove, hey, there was 4 prongs into the ground.
All right.
And they could tell exactly how much it weighed based on how much the ground would take and how
Right.
much of a dent it was.
Well, it gets
in
even
the-
better than that because we actually got metal samples that the feet left on the rock, and we got the rocks itself.
Oh my God, tell me about that, please.
Oh shoot.
So
Sorry, Mac.
I
I'm
know,
sorry. Tell me, Tony, tell me.
So about was in 1976 when he was getting it analyzed. Well, actually, got to Goddard early on. It was pretty.
Yeah,
Hold
there
on a second.
was-
So, hold on a second. So this event existed in '64. And you told me it was until
64.
'76.
Well, no,
Analyzed?
the book came out like in 66.
Oh, okay,
77.
okay. All right, now,
Right, they don't know
okay,
who
that
Ray
makes
is.
sense. That makes sense.
There was a big piece of sliver of the metal that was on the rock, and when he was giving it to Dick,
Talking about Ray Stanford.
yeah, Ray Stanford, he was given this metal sample to what's his name?
Dr. Frankel.
No, Dick Hall.
Dick Hall.
To Dick Hall
Oh,
because
that
he-
is a hilarious name.
I know, right?
Jesus Christ.
May he rest in peace. But
Oh
Yeah.
man.
but he had a friend named Dr. Frankel out of Goddard who said he could analyze this metal sample. So Ray says, "Look, I want the samples back, or please don't
No,
scrape."
do half of them.
Yeah, just
do
do
half
half. Don't scrape all of it. They said, "Oh yeah, you can trust us." Well, they scraped
Yeah.
everything off.
Of
that
course
thing.
they did.
And then Dr. Frankel vanished. He all of a sudden could no longer communicate with him, and that someone else took over the whole project. Well, needless to say, he was given some information.
Well, yeah, the metal, and it's kind of a contentious point because we have video of Hynek saying you shouldn't have given it to him.
Tell
But
me
if
who
you-
Hynek, tell me who Hynek
Dr.
is.
Hynek was the Project Blue Book scientist hired by the government to investigate the claims that eventually became a UFO believer. But the metal Frankel told Ray before he got clamped down on was a zinc
Iron
alloy, but the combination, the way it was combined,
was
didn't
bound
conform to
in a
anything
weird
on the
way.
periodic chart. And so
Oh my
and it was non-corrosive.
fucking God.
it was non-corrosive like gold. Nothing would affect it. And he said, well, if this was coated on the landing gear, that would make sense because it's non-corrosive. And the metal disappeared.
Right.
And so we still have access to the rock, which has some melted crystals. But the one thing about the
So, where's the rock at right now?
it's with our friend Ray, who was the original investigator that was on site. Hynek called him to the site in 1964.
You tell me he has a rock right now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that-
in a
yeah.
highly,
Right now.
highly secured location. Yeah.
It's in a,
Oh,
it's in
okay,
a
okay.
safe. It's in a safe.
All right.
It's,
I thought say is it like him in his house?
No,
like with his
no,
wife?
it's in
and,
a
like his
bank.
grandkids running around?
it's in a bank
It's in
somewhere.
a special place. Yeah.
But
Oh
the,
my God.
The interesting thing about that case is that the government, and we have a really good. We'll have to give you a copy of our presentation. We've done it like 8 times.
Oh,
We won't
please,
keep
please,
improving on it.
please.
Yes.
Yes, we want
Bring
that.
on.
But and we're on. You
BLACKSnYAC
can find
want
us on
that.
YouTube too. But our latest one is our best one. But basically, the government ran out of options. They could have come out and said, "Hey, it was a black project craft." They never did. Their final determination was unknown. And we have all the internal Blue Book documents that were found by a gentleman named Rob Mercer on Craigslist. And those documents were basically said, can you explain this away? No hallucinations. They don't cause 4 holes in the ground. We had there was evidence of radiation because the film taken the day of the event was fogged by radiation.
Okay.
So the whole thing is one of the 701 cases that's unsolved, and as we've digged into it more, we actually have seen, and we can't go into great detail, but there is somebody that has a photograph taken at the site that shows the craft in the air. So we've seen in a photograph an egg-shaped craft with the 3 of the landing gear obviously available to the picture. And so we know that this event happened exactly the way it occurred because there's a photograph of this craft.
About 0.5, 0.6 miles from
0.5 miles away from the camera with 3 other craft in the picture. What looks like a mothership, another egg-shaped craft, and a saucer-shaped craft, looking out at the Pearl Mountains in Socorro. So we're going to Socorro in April to kind of talk to some witnesses.
Last time we were there, we photographed our own UFOs. We got one
we
site.
were in Arizona going 66 West, which is, on 66 West, you can pass by Daytil and Corona, all these different areas where supposed crashes happen over the years. But the great telescope display,
it's like a corridor of crashes.
All the telescopes you've seen out in this desert. That's on the left as you're going out there. And Tony just got the feeling to start taking pictures out the window, and we were
just chatting, right? And I'm like, hold up, man, hold up. I gotta roll this window down.
A dome-shaped
shooting, right?
We got a dome-shaped object with a red light on top and 9 different photos moving away from us, and then we got like a cigar-shaped thing with what looks like vents down the side.
Something like that, yeah.
That cigar shape's pretty popular.
Right.
It makes sense because saucers and cigars would penetrate the atmosphere easier than any other shape.
So
least resistance.
In your opinion,
that's interesting. You mentioned least resistance. We can tell you a little bit about.
Well, see, what was your question?
Well, I mean, it's going to stray off a tiny bit.
No,
we can bring it back in. But in your opinion, so when you say they go out to these crash sites, or they went out to these crash sites, they've proven, not even proven, but like they say it's substantial evidence, like, hey, something was here. He's not telling a lie.
Right.
What do you think would be the reason why? I would say civilians can't know this. We all we inquire about it. We want to know.
You trying to say why don't we have disclosure?
Well, I mean, not y'all. I mean, not you guys.
No, I mean government. For
government
example,
wise, yeah.
That's,
I mean,
this is one of Ben's favorite topics.
That's real easy to answer. It's it all stems from
religion.
2 documents.
One of them.
One was the government Air Force did an internal investigation of what was going on. The conclusion came back that they were interplanetary craft, and then they said you can't come to that conclusion. They squashed it. The second study was the Brookings Institute, which is a think tank for Washington, D.C., that basically said, look, after the 1939 broadcast of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, where people freaked out and started shooting their neighbors, and I mean, it caused almost riots in every city that heard it because they didn't realize it was a play. They kept thinking that we were being invaded by Mars. They said, because of the reaction to that, you can't disclose this. You would collapse religion, monetary value, oil, all that would collapse if you say there's somebody here with a better technology and there's nothing we can do about it. And that's the reason they'll never disclose it. You can't say, hey, they're coming around, they might be abducting people, but it's okay. We can't stop them.
Yes.
We can't do anything, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. So the whole reason the Brookings Institute said, look, as we explore space, if we find evidence of extraterrestrials on the backside of the moon, because the moon doesn't rotate, the backside always is away from us, and they would place something there knowing that we could only find it once we could travel space and maybe survive killing ourselves. But he said if we travel the solar system and find evidence of aliens, you just can't tell the people about it because of Orson Welles' broadcast and this and that. And so that's
There's another book right there called "We Found Aliens on the Moon."
Aliens on the Moon, yeah. But the whole point is that they didn't think we could handle it. And the argument that's true now is Star Trek was one of the greatest TV shows to bring people around to accepting the fact that there's probably aliens. And I've watched so many shows on TV where scientists go, well, I became a scientist because I saw this Star Trek episode. And that's what got them interested. It could be the original Star Trek or the Next Generation or whatever. But and now, it used to be 10 or 15%. Now about 60% of the population believes that we've been visited. So disclosure wouldn't be that great a shock as it would have been in the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, but one of the things I feel like is largely disregarded. If we went back, I remember we were talking about time not being, a linear type deal. But
or being a linear type deal, not a past, present, or future.
Past, present, past, present, and future.
I got you, baby.
Appreciate you, man. But you said we would eventually have to come together in order to leave this planet. It didn't have to be in physical form. It can be astral projecting to that extent. But to think about, there's beings or species that are actually entering this Earth with the technology to do it already. Because this proves that they were here probably in this universe, if not other universes, a lot longer than we've been here.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
like, I feel like it's just like we were probably one of the last. And then when we finally figure it out, they'll, we're going to other, galaxies, any kind of possible situation. They're just on the outside, like, man, there might be something out there, but they can't prove it yet. So they're already there. Like, it's almost like a double-sided mirror where one of them it's like
Ant farm.
ant farm, where like a double-sided glass where one of them you can see through, and the other one they're like,
Yeah,
there
I mean,
might be somebody there.
Our sun is 4 billion years old. There's suns that are 50 billion years old. So it makes sense that there's a lot of
hold on a
civilization.
second. I don't want you to slow over your words. How old are these suns?
Our sun is, I think, 4 billion years old with another 5 billion to go. But we have a young solar system.
Yeah,
lot
ours
of
is one of the newest.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
the places you can see are much, much older. And so, and I've always thought, look where we were. This is 2018. Look where we were in 1818. Imagine the
We've grown a lot.
Right. Think 500 years ahead of us, 20,000 years ahead of us, 500 million years ahead of us. The technology, if there's multiple species, which could be true, visiting us, some could be 200 years ahead of us, but those guys that are 50,000 years ahead of us, it's just like Carl Sagan said, it'd be magic.
You got evidence right here, man, because this little device right here far exceeded my expectations.
It's yeah.
Beyond anything I could imagine.
The iPhone
Exactly.
was a revolution, and whether that came from ingenuity or somebody getting a little bit of a lead,
Came from the records. Tesla.
Because Roswell,
Tesla thought about it years ago.
Roswell
centuries ago.
supposedly they had computer chips, and that's how they learned the secret of computer chips. And the descriptions from Roswell were fishing wire with a light on the end of it.
Allegedly,
That's fiber optics.
we got fiber optics out of it, night vision out of it. We got remote control out of it, all kinds of crazy stuff.
And the graphene,
infrared.
and
Stealth technology.
putting the pilot actually being part of the craft,
Right.
so that if you look left, it goes left. You look right.
Those big eyes you all see is not the real alien. That's a mask, and that's just so they can see in the darkness, kind of a thing. Like those are lenses that they actually gave.
That's what
to-
the number one remote
Oh,
viewer
shit,
said that
for real?
the grays
The
are
lenses,
really not.
those big
Yeah.
almond eyes are
Yeah.
actually lenses, and they gave those to technology companies. That's how they came up with night vision by
Night
by
vision.
deconstructing the lenses.
Hold a second. All right. Let's talk about the Grays for a second. And Ronald Reagan. And back in the 80s.
You and these
We've heard some
presidents,
crazy stories.
Is that a
presidents.
thing, or is that just people just talking shit?
I'll tell you what. I mean,
Which
the one story.
Reagan story?
I'm
There's
gonna
so
go.
many.
I'm gonna go with the Laura Eisenhower one.
She's
Oh,
so
because that one's so
bad.
crazy.
Hey. Take your time.
I like the Reagan
and blow our
briefing.
fucking mind. Mike,
You
keep
do
the
that
cameras
one.
rolling. It's already been prepaid for. We got to take 2 hours. Just make it happen.
Or this is a 2-hour session.
Has it been 2 hours?
It's been it's been like an hour some change right now, Mike. Hour and a half. Hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, cool.
17. He said he ready to get y'all
Hour 17.
motherfuckers out of here.
Hey, we
That's
got
what he wants to
time.
do.
Make it happen.
Mike
So,
said he got better shit to do
this
on
is
Friday.
interesting. So Reagan and his wife, back in the day, they were going. I think they're driving through SoCal to go to a party before it was all built up and everything. And allegedly, this UFO lands in front of their car and stops them out in the middle of nowhere. And Ronald Reagan is sitting there, he's freaking out, and his window's up, and he's like freaking out. What do I do? This alien allegedly walks up to his window and knocks on it, and he looks at his wife. What do I do? She says, "Roll the window down." So he rolls the window down, and allegedly, this alien says to him, "We need you to run for president." And he's like, "How am I supposed to do that? I don't have the funds. I don't have this and this." He says, "Don't worry about it. We take
What
care
year
of
is
it."
this? What year is this?
Shoot, what year was that? Do you remember?
Because Reagan got
That was in 1978, I think it was.
We get it. You know
He
your
was-
presidents.
yeah.
77, 70. This is before he ran.
I know the presidents very well.
Yeah, so it's probably like 77, 78, I think it was. Something like that.
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell
Anywho,
you.
so he goes to this party, and he's in shock about this whole thing, and he announces that he's going to run for president. And so next thing you know, things just happen for him apparently. But that was in a nutshell.
The best Reagan stories that I know about that are probably, I would think, closer to the truth are that when he, at the United Nations, said, he stopped everybody when he said, "I think all our differences would be solved if we were
Oh, my
threatened by
God.
an
You've
alien
seen that,
threat
right?
from outside of our planet." And the other thing that he said was that when he invited Steven Spielberg out to the White House, and
Okay.
Spielberg has never denied this, to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Spielberg actually, said, "I'll show you the movie." That Reagan leaned over to him during the movie and goes, "Just can't tell you how much of this is really true." You know.
And y'all seen that movie, right?
No, I've seen the movie. Talk about it, please.
You remember the part where they're coming around the bend, and the UFOs are coming right around the corner. Those three lights.
Yeah.
Ben, talk about that, and Ray shooting the photographs of that before the movie came out.
All right, hold a second. Before you begin, are we talking about the landing strip with the colors and the exchanges of aliens and humans?
That is correct as well.
The movie had
Okay.
the panels with the some the tones, beep boo 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 boo, that brought the aliens down.
What does that mean right there?
Well, it was
those
supposed to be a
sounds?
form of communication. We know that mathematics is a universal form of communication, but
Based on the universe.
right, because you can break everything. Math works throughout the universe, so we know
All these
that
binary
there's helium
code is
and there's
anyway.
carbon on all these other stars because we can see the signatures for it.
Okay.
But we have a friend that was at White Sands when he said that, and this was 6 months before the movie.
Something like that.
He had gotten word. He was a UFO investigator. He got word that an event was going to happen on the White Sands grounds, which is a army testing
What
base.
if what he witnessed was the
Okay.
movie being made?
But he got up on a mountain called Peekaboo.
This has occurred to me.
It's a mountain called Peekaboo where you can look into the valley. And
Okay.
when he got set up there, the mountain had these panels around it that were exactly like the same as the movie. So what he witnessed was these white panels surrounding the mountaintop that had different colors, exactly like the movie before the movie came out. And he filmed two UFOs, spindle-shaped, coming down, docking with each other, and then moving 20 miles away and coming back in the blink of the eye.
Yeah,
over
how
and
cool
over.
is that? You see these things coming together like this, and then they both go the same direction back.
And then they dock, and then they move
Jesus.
20 miles and blink of the eye, come back, move 20 miles, come back, and they're all playing around this mountain that has these panels around it. And so we have the documentation from him with the magnetometer readings showing that there was energy being provided by these craft. Magnetometer is a great way to measure if something's using some type of unique propulsion. It's electromagnetic interference.
It breaks that electromagnetic field. You have a base, and then when something enters that frequency and changes that base, you can
Yeah.
correlate that to what you're
So you
seeing.
have an object, you don't see any propellers, you don't see any exhaust, you don't see any engines. It's a completely sealed object, yet it's performing aerodynamic features. You're looking at advanced propulsion, and a magnetometer, gravitometer, and things like this can pick up evidence of the frequencies it's working on, but you still are baffled by
Check out
that.
Nellis Air Force Base UFO. You're going to see great evidence of what he just said.
That's a pretty
Nellis.
Nellis,
I was at
Yeah.
Nellis one time.
Say
I had
Nellis
that-
has some stuff over there that'll
Yeah.
make you look twice.
I was in Vegas partying hard.
Makes you double
Nellis
take
is
3
crazy.
times.
Yeah, it'll make you double take. Nellis is stacked as far as aircrafts, anything. That would be a good spot. If I was a UFO coming in, or on a UFO coming in, that's where I would go first. Mainly because of the fact that
you know
what
what?
they have there.
You just brought up a great point. So, are you familiar with it's a moon? I forget which planet it is. Maybe Jupiter.
Phobos?
Phobos.
No, Ceres.
Sirius B.
Ceres B.
That's where the Dogon tribe claims to be from in Africa.
Oh, okay. See, I knew.
There's a
I
whole
knew
book on that.
okay. Now we're getting something right here.
Y'all don't know about that?
We're gonna get in a second. But I
Hold
want to bring something up. Mike, keep the cameras rolling. Keep the cameras
You
rolling.
got, you
It's
got
already
to
been
know.
paid
You
for.
got to know about this.
No, I want to know about this.
Mike said,
But this is what I'm bringing up first. The lights on Las Vegas are as bright from the sky as that moon on Ceres.
Yeah, you can see them from a long way away.
Okay, talk.
Okay, so the Dogon tribe has ancient wisdom apparently, and when the more sophisticated, urban culture came to check them out, they found out they were asking them questions. How do they know about the solar system and all this? And they kept mentioning Sirius B. Well, we didn't know about Sirius B, so in our opinion, it didn't exist. It was just a bunch of tall tales.
I think he's talking about the planetoid that was discovered in our solar system.
Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about
Yeah,
Sirius B?
with the white
You-
reflection.
I'm talking about that one, but
Yeah.
you keep talking about what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, mine's
Because I know about the Dogons.
mine's way more interesting.
Rick is like a grabber of information. He's like, yeah, I
Probably
like what you're
hydrogen
saying,
ice.
but bring it to the table.
Yeah, I know about the Dogon. Shout out to my
Yeah.
man, one of these rappers out here. Not one of these rappers, but one of the best rappers that hasn't released any music. My man, Jay Electronica. One plug. Keep talking.
Facts.
So when we started inquiring about where they came from, they kept mentioning Sirius B. We said, well, that doesn't exist until later on. I think it was like 1996, as a matter of fact, when we first discovered
Sirius
that.
is a binary star system. We didn't know it was two stars, but the Dogon tribe from about 5,500 years ago, or 5,500 BC, which is further back in time, they knew it was a binary star system. And they actually knew the way the that the planets rotated around each other.
But it was 1996 that we discovered it.
We
right?
discovered like 2 years ago that they were right about the gravitational pull. Also,
That was for another planet, though.
no, that was the same system.
No, Sirius. They got Sirius C now too.
Well, Sirius,
we couldn't see that before.
the two stars are a light year away, but they had an orbit that the Dogon predicted, and we
Right.
just
We
figured out the
just now
orbit.
Saw it. Right.
And they knew it 7,000, 8,000 years ago.
Right. It was part of their ancient
Jesus
history,
Christ.
ancient culture. But on top of that, here's the most important thing the Dogon tribe said.
Okay.
They said, we come from up there. Our ancestors come from the sky. And that is what's, if you ever watch Ancient Alien Theory or check
Yes,
that
yes,
out,
I've seen that show.
you'll notice that almost every culture in this world has some sort of
Knowledge from the
Ancestry.
skies or from across the
Right.
waters.
The
Now, hold a
Ancestry
second, hold a
Texas
second. This is a great plug right here. Y'all were on the History Channel, weren't y'all?
History Channel.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
on
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah,
Hangar
where
1.
we all
Tell
at?
them about Hangar 1.
You talking about Hangar On? It's all your.
Oh,
It's all
oh.
your idea.
These guys
actually.
are famous.
No one wants
This
to speak
dude-
about Hangar
John,
On.
Hold up,
they-
this dude here, he astral projected this whole thing. So
My grandmother was psychic, and I think some of it rubbed off on me. But anyway,
Hey, shout out to Grandma.
2012, I think, we were going to go. I was trying to talk Tony. We just met into the MUFON symposium. I said, look, the producer for that UFO show on the History Channel, Hangar 1, is going to be there because they had the season already. I was like, maybe, we can see some of the other speakers because they're all having, getting old. And then Stanton Friedman had a heart attack, and that kind of drove the point home. And he didn't appear. He actually Skyped in, I think. But anyway, on a side note, I was like, well, maybe we can meet the producer and get on the show. In the back of my mind, I saw this path that was like, we'll meet the producer, we'll impress him, we'll do an audition, we'll beat out thousands of other people, and we'll get on a TV show, which is the longest shot ever. How many people get on a TV show and actually make it happen?
Exactly.
So anyway, we go there, and the producer is being chased around by somebody that didn't get on the second season, and I go and I buy him a beer, and he comes over to the table, and we start chatting with him. We say some stupid things about what we think should be on the next season.
all we say is stupid things. So,
But I told him
Like the
I
whole
used to
time
do.
here.
I used to do. I said I used to do stand-up comedy, which I did at the Alexander Comedy Club for a short while, and and I told him. I think I told him a couple of jokes, and then he walked away, and I turned to Tony. I said, but he walks back and says, "Hey, do you want to audition for my show for season 2?"
I was like verbatim. He just came right.
And so he
back.
walks back and goes, "Hey, I'm thinking, would you like to audition for our show?"
I'm like this. I'm like drinking and going. I'm on spitting out my cup.
Yeah.
So I'm still not going to
Yeah, I
get
can see
excited
that right
about
there.
it because it's a long shot. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. Very low key. And then we go to do the tapes, and they haven't even contacted Tony. They're just talking to me. So I go over to his house with my cell phone, and we're supposed to memorize this script. Instead, I write it on a big piece of cardboard and put it right behind the camera, so it looks like I memorized it. And Tony's dog is licking my leg, and we're just
What
cutting
the
up.
fuck? Yeah, some peanut butter on
And
your
finally,
on
I
your upper
called.
thigh.
Yeah,
I'm the official pause guy around here.
I didn't have anything to
Pause
play with till my
Mac
mom cut the
pause.
bottoms out of my pocket. So,
Molecule Mac pause.
but
you missed his joke.
No, you know what? The listeners heard it. I'll hear it again.
You gotta say
Just
that
keep
one
going.
again.
No, just keep going. The
gotta
people
say
already
that.
heard it. The people heard it. Just keep going. I'll listen to it again. Don't worry about
Catch
it.
later.
So what happened was they called up and go, well, we want Tony also. So we did this audition, which I still have on my phone. And sure enough, they called us about a month later and go, hey, want to fly you out to L.A. to be on the show.
Nice.
And so we go out, and it's this site where Mike Tyson's medical records were in there. It's this haunted. It was investigated as a haunted place, 40,000 square feet of a warehouse with medical records. And that's Hangar 1 that you see on the show.
Okay.
And so we filmed. It was funny because when I got in the chair, the guy goes, "Have you ever been on TV before?" I'm like, "I've never seen a camera before, And he goes, "Well, you're sitting really well." I sat like this for 16 hours straight.
Look at you looking
and,
strong.
and filmed like 4 or 5 episodes that way. And Tony was funny because Tony, you got a call. I think your girlfriend or somebody called during the show. And
Are you still with her?
And the director's like, director Doug was hilarious. She's like, he's mimicking Tony's guy. Like, yeah, this director's here. He's a dick, man. I hate him. He's an asshole. I can't stand him. And it was hilarious because he looked like Woody Allen. He was really funny and so we filmed the show. It was kind of cool to see the background scene, and we got on season 2 of Hangar 1, about 8 episodes each. And unfortunately, we didn't get renewed because of conflict with another show.
But you got paid.
Not really. We got a free trip. There was
We
no.
probably lost money going
Yeah, we
out
probably
there.
lost money on
But
that
you got
one.
exposure.
Yeah, because we weren't hired as actors. We were hired as experts. The actors, we saw lots of money exchanging hands.
The actors are still getting paid right now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, for residuals, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, residuals.
But what a great experience to see behind the scenes and to have an input in it, and to say things that we believed in on camera. Because usually when we do TV shows and stuff, I won't say anything that I don't believe in. And what happened with NASA's Unexplained Files when the guy asked me, "Do you want to say this?" I'm like, "Not really."
See, one of the things that bothers me when I see about stuff like To the Stars is the amount of money they're generating. They're making millions on the hype that they're.
Are they really
promoting.
making millions?
They are.
Yeah, he's guaranteed $500,000 a year. Their goal is
Guaranteed
to raise
from
50
who?
million, through the stock offering. Here's the thing about To the Stars. I've said not kind things about Tom DeLonge. I'm sure his heart's in the right place, but not having been in the ufology for a long time, there are many people that will lead you down the straight path, and they've already done that. He's promoted things that aren't true.
Yeah, you said that absolutely.
In their white papers, there is not a penny spent on UFO research. Not a penny. It's a money-generating machine that's built around books, videos, and maybe building the subliminal craft to get you to the other side of the universe, which is a pipe dream. So even though it might have good intentions from some of the people there, it's a money machine. And whenever in ufology I hear money, it's a red flag, because I tell people, if you get in this ufology to be rich and famous, you're going to be poor and unknown, because it doesn't pay, and you spend your own dime to do all these investigations, but you do it because you're trying to find the truth. If I could discover that UFOs were real and aliens were coming here, well, that's the greatest thing that we could ever hear about. And there's so many questions we could ask another civilization, but I don't care if I get $1 million. I'd like to get paid to do what I love to do, chase UFOs, which we've tried to do with several TV shows, but, I never expect to get paid.
I do have a question, though.
Go ahead, because I have a great question after this one.
Ooh, is it better than mine?
No, hey, Mac, when it comes to everybody here, we're all equal. We're all 25%, baby. Go and do your thing.
25 going up. Right, ready? So, if something happened and some kind of crazy, out of this world, speaking of UFOs, out of this world experience happens, and you get hardcore proof, undeniable proof, possibly maybe an alien just falls into your backyard.
Right.
With you knowing as much as you know now, and you know how humans, us, here on Earth would react, would you bring it to light?
Hell no.
Do you think
I'd cover it up.
I would
You'd cover
stagger it. I would stagger
you'd
it.
stagger it in?
Yeah, I
You
would-
Why?
You would keep it
Why?
to yourself?
You can't just throw that at people. You have to slowly kind of bring it out.
You all saw E.T., right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you
E.T.
go.
was like a comedy.
I mean, yeah. I don't even
Plus,
think
I
that
would ask the
counts.
alien, does he want that to happen?
That premise has happened. They've been-
You
If
would
he
ask
doesn't
the
want
alien?
that, if he says, "I don't want you to do that," I'd go, "Okay."
They had another, how do we
He
know
said
that?
something that was kind of interesting there. You said the premise has happened. What are you talking about?
Here's the
Tony.
deal. Here's the thing
Tony,
about
talk to me.
Here's the thing about Hollywood, right? It is a machine to get the people educated. It's also a way of disclosure, if you will.
A
Because,
rival.
right? You can create a movie and say this is just a movie. Chill. This ain't real. But you can put as much reality as you want into it to help condition the people.
Yes,
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, that's happened, yeah.
yes.
Right.
The Day the Earth Stood Still, Earth versus Flying Saucers, all those movies from the 50s and 60s.
Tell them about the day they were still, the
Yeah,
involvement of the Air Force.
The Air Force was the consultant on that to make sure their stories were correct. And so
That's interesting because I'm in the Air Force and
I'm proud of Air Force.
they were
My family's all
consultants,
Air Force,
especially on
too.
the
Hey,
Day the
let's
Earth
do
Stood
it.
Still.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, they were consultants
a
on
real
both movies, and sometimes they'd say, "This is not quite right. You got to
Right.
do it like this."
Right.
It's
They had
interesting because if
quite
you
the
go back to the
involvement.
50s, some of the Air Force, they would come out with press conferences talking about UFOs all the time, and then the hammer fell, and that was the end of that. And it was Donald Kehoe that probably started the whole process.
He wrote an excellent book.
Donald Kehoe was an Air Force major. He came out on a live TV show and started talking about stuff that they didn't want to talk about. They cut the live feed, and then that was the end of the Air Force talking about UFOs on camera.
What's up with live feeds? Wasn't there one in Britain back in the day? Some that came from outer space. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
My feeds aren't real though. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
some
like a 15-second delay.
hoaxes and I mean,
Is they go down the hoax route right there?
the only thing, the WOW signal was the only thing I've seen.
Oh, the WOW
from
signal,
space.
right.
Hold a second. Fuck that bullshit right there. Then the wild signal. Tell me.
That was when they did the SETI, started the SETI.
I'm familiar with SETI. Yeah.
Their search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Mhm.
Seth Shostak. They found a signal that was an intelligent repeating pattern, and the guy saw it on this crude computer printout, and he circled it and he wrote "Wow." And
yes,
that's
I've
why
seen
it's
that
called
one
the
as-
WOW signal because
Yeah.
it was, and they could never repeat it. They kept targeting that star. But what's interesting is a lot of the
Hold
UFO
a second. What star was that?
Gillies.
I don't recall.
I can't remember,
To
but
test today, huh, Rick?
Is that Orion's belt?
Orion's belt does factor into everything that Egypt was about for
Only
sure.
when Ryan goes.
There's
and
a
takes
reason why
off
I
his
brought that
belt.
up. There's a reason why I brought that
The
up.
pyramids.
That was the
and-
Easter egg. I'm gonna come back to it a little bit later.
Yeah.
It's my Easter egg when you tell
I
me
mean,
this.
Orion's belt, the pyramids are definitely done as a pattern of Orion's belt.
Hold a second. Don't get in Orion's belt real quick. Get into SETI. Back to SETI. Let's move that forward.
SETI, as Stanton Friedman would say, it's a silly search for extra.
Silly excuse.
It's just,
For-
they're searching for radio signals, which who knows if they're going to transmit radio signals.
Was
you know?
WOW real or not?
WOW was an unusual signal, and we've gotten some weird things. That thing obstructing that
Oh,
star.
silly excuse
which-
to investigate.
Yeah, but
That's it.
the whole thing is that
That's what it
if
is.
any of the hundreds of thousands of UFO cases, if one of them is real, then you have proof of something coming here. Why are you looking in space for a signal if the thing is here in our atmosphere?
You make a
That's
great
the
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you think that's why you mean it's a waste of money?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about two other things: abductions and crop circles.
Well,
Specifically, ooh.
I was interested in crop circles back in the 90s.
You were. So what happened?
Well, there was so much contention about whether they're faked or not, and it was just really difficult to. We don't have that many around here. Everything was over in England.
Right.
Over
Yeah.
in was it Westminster or whatever it was.
It's
and-
near the Stonehenge and some
Right.
of the the historical great
And my favorite
areas of
investigator at the
history.
time, his name is kind of
Colin Firth.
Collins.
Collins, yeah. Colin Firth is an actor. Sorry.
Colin Firth is another. Yeah,
You mean George Clooney?
yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Collins. I can't remember his first name at the moment, but what was interesting that he found, he said that look, when you have a real crop circle, the grass is laid over gently and the node has been altered so that the genetic structure of the plant is now growing in a different direction. So the nodes were not damaged, but they were altered. And when they're altered and they continue the counterclockwise growth, to him and his research and the radiation levels that were measured and all the culmination of all the evidence comes together into basically you surmise that this is a real thing. But then it got really intricate. You started seeing these huge floral patterns and geodesic shapes and things like this, and it became really difficult to determine anymore. If the evidence isn't fully there, then you got to call it a fake. If you don't have radiation, if you don't have bent over nodes, things like this.
We have a friend that calls it crap circles.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Crap circles.
Yeah, that's what he calls them. Calls them crap circles. He doesn't believe that any of them are real.
See, here's the thing:
But I think some of them are.
if there's a civilization visiting us, why would they write in our wheat fields? I mean, that's
Exactly.
a distraction. That could be a disinformation ploy to
Right.
pull us off the track.
That's what I'm thinking.
Just
Yeah.
I say about To the Stars Academy.
Okay. All right.
Some of the more, if To the Stars Academy is getting pressed, then why not send them things that aren't quite real? And that way, when they present it as real, we can come back later and go, no, that was fake.
Right.
Other things like talk bad about their family, fault it,
Yeah.
do something about their kids.
Well, the
things like
UFO
that.
videos they released didn't come from the Pentagon. One came from a deformed back channel release, and both of them were available. One was available in 2007 on the internet, and one was available in 2004, but they were released in 2017 as if they were new. And these were known to exist. And the thing is, they're infrared with almost no. One has clouds above it, but the biggest mistake they made when they released those videos was they had the audio for the wrong video they were showing.
Right.
And the guy's talking about a fleet, and you're looking at a tic tac shape, and you're like, "What fleet?" And and the thing is, if you have this important release, how can you mix up and have two wrong audios from two wrong videotapes? That's just, to me, it's like, okay, this was thrown out there. These guys are going to release it, and then we can show how silly they are.
So when you look at it, man, like the way I see it, crop circles, I'm kind of with you, because I'm like, too much of it can be faked. That's it.
So terrestrial.
That's the challenge
It's
today with
A lawnmower,
with,
a nice pair of hands.
And then,
terrestrial.
Like, I see it as a human thing anyway.
Right, we could do it. We could do it.
A human thing, and like in behavior wise, it's
Right.
like we go somewhere and we want somebody to know we were there.
Graffiti.
We tag it.
Yeah, graffiti.
Exactly, we tag it. So like the
Kilroy
it's like,
was
it's,
here.
I feel like it's like a thing that we kind of made up, but still nonetheless could be real.
Right.
I mean, because I mean, back then when crop circles were discovered, it was before like the tagging era, before the
Right.
when to put your initials on something era. So I mean, that's one thing, and then but then again, you have the other side where crop circles could be signs, languages, symbols. I.e., I mean,
Right.
we can take it back. I reference movies a lot because I look at a lot of alien stuff, man, a lot of
That's
UFO
cool.
stuff.
Signs.
So, Arrival.
I hated
Arrival.
it. Arrival was great. We spoke
Arrival
at
was
that
great.
premiere too.
I feel like if it was something that needed to be
That's what I
transcribed,
meant, was Arrival.
we have somebody that could. I mean, we always have new growing technologies, new findings, new everything. We
And
have
like-
people that can do stuff like that.
Well, you
Right.
know what's interesting is when SETI was really getting strong, and this is in Howard Bloom's book Out There, when he found that there was a UFO working group inside the government in the 80s. But when SETI got started, they said, okay, if we find extraterrestrial life, the best astrophysicists will announce this to the world. And the CIA got a hold of that and said,
No, you
that
won't.
ain't going to happen.
No, you won't.
We're changing
Yeah,
the whole
exactly,
chain
exactly.
of command. And that's when they started funding them. And they pulled the funding and they gave the funding back. But the bottom line was that they found anything, it had to run through the intelligence agencies.
So let me ask you this. I know Max said it earlier, but I want to make it. Let me be clear. Obama voice. If you came across an alien, or you saw something, or you saw a spacecraft fly above you, 1,000 feet in the air, would you say it right now? Would you say in the future?
Oh, if I saw something myself?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'd say something I saw it. But if something landed in my backyard and I'm communicating and I'm able to take a ride in that craft, and I was told to keep my mouth shut, you can better believe I'll keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, I respect that 100%. 100%.
But yeah,
Ricky has a story though. Like, can you tell it here?
Do I have a story?
You have a story.
What story is this? Give me the year and the time.
So I'm a prior enlisted individual in the United States Air
I'm going to
Force,
take
so-
a piss real soon.
No, yeah, hold it. Don't break the seal.
Got an
man.
orange juice
Don't
can
break the
around there
fucking seal. You hold it.
Man, hey, the host, man. Hey, you're also a host too. You can run this thing yourself. I might do it. Take a piss real quick.
I can, but you need to be here for the story. So with Ricky, I used to be an aviation resource manager. So
You all served together?
Yeah. We were in
Yeah,
we were in Oklahoma together.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a flyer, so his whole thing, he got to fly on, the AWACS plane.
You don't
which
see
is
anything on the AWACS.
You don't see anything on the AWACS.
It's all radar.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
He's changed his crew position now, and I'm almost. I want to say. I'm kind of getting signs from. I'm trying to get signs from him right now.
I know you try and go at, and I know you want me to go at. You want me to go there?
So you
I
saw
want you-
something, the AOX picked up something.
It's not that the AWACS.
No.
picked up his
Oh,
own-
one sec. We're saying something totally different right now. I want to clear that up.
Go ahead.
Me, Ricky Lewis on AWACS, the platform. So absolutely nothing. All right. Just want to put that out there for the cameras. Now, I was deployed once upon a time on a certain aircraft, and looking through a camera. Actually, no. Let me take it back. So we're flying out there about 19,000 feet, and the pilots on radar, they're like, "Hey, something just flew past us." They call, and radar's like, "Well, we don't see anything out there. We have no idea what you're talking about." It's like, "Yeah, something just flew right past us." They're like, "Well, we said nothing else out there in your area to fly right past you, so we have no idea." That is a definition of a UFO.
All right.
With that being said, I have no idea. I didn't have a window. I didn't see anything light up crazy. The jet didn't turn any sorts of way. I don't know. But if you were to look up UFOs UFOs in Afghanistan, who knows, you may find. Like you said, same thing with Japan.
I'm about to
A
put
lot
him
of
in the hot
bombs
seat.
dropping over there.
I'm gonna put him in the hot seat.
Oh, a second. Don't put me in hot seats yet. A lot of bombs is dropping over there. A lot of crazy shit's happening. War, with bombs. Bombs are protons, neutrons, electrons shooting out. Maybe not the same thing as that happened with in the New Mexico area, but with that being said, it may attract attention.
Right.
As we're talking about being consistent here,
Right.
and who knows? Who knows what I saw out there?
That's why you gotta.
Or not who knows what I saw, but who knows what was out there next to our aircraft? Because it was pretty close.
You've heard of
Fun
Foo
to say.
Fighters, right?
I'm sorry?
You heard of Foo Fighters, right?
Yes.
The band.
Well, the band got their name from the actual thing, right?
Oh my God! Get this guy.
So they called them during the war. They called them Foo Fighters because the Japanese Zeros. You didn't know what else to call them. There was these balls of light flying around.
Fu means fire in Japanese.
Yeah. So they.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Firefighters.
Right. So they saw these balls of light flying around. They thought, well, these are Foo Fighters. It's technology of the Japanese Army, or Air Force or what have you. And so that's where the band got its name.
Well, they were also metallic spheres, but your case sounds like there are times when, and I've seen video that's very compelling, where something flies so fast by somebody they get a glimmer of it.
And this happened. I'm gonna interrupt you, but a lot of we'll be up there for hours, just talking. So I was talking to my pilots like, hey, these guys have been in same thing you said. Guys been in 15, 20 years. I'm like, look, straight up, I gotta ask you a question. Have you ever seen anything UFO out there?
Oh hell yeah!
And every single pilot has a fucking story.
Yeah,
They all have a fucking story.
They're the
But
best
you-
witnesses.
I
Yeah.
can sense where Ben's going right now. He's about to tell you about time compression. I know it. I can feel it.
But
Well,
You're
yeah,
going with time compression.
Yeah, it leads to. Here's an example. We have
He's
somebody
deflecting.
that I won't mention that has
deflecting.
footage of a craft.
Hot. This part's hot. You got to listen to
Where
this.
I want to hear it.
and
Then I'm
this-
gonna take a hot piss.
In this footage, there's an object 20 miles away, and he's filming at 400 frames per second. And in one
16
frame,
millimeter.
16 millimeter. In one
1977.
frame, an object comes all the way up to the side of the airplane. He's going 400 miles an hour, and appears in his frame of his camera.
And what did you see in that one frame? How many things were in that one frame?
And the next frame is gone. So when they analyzed the frame, that object was moving at 8% of the speed of light in the atmosphere. And in that frame was a creature inside of a ice cream cone shaped object that looked startled to see
Looks
somebody
like-
filming him from an
What was
airplane.
it? You said ice cream
Look like
shape like
this.
like
Look
the.
Yeah, it was a
Look.
cone with a dome over it.
Right. So there's a cone at the bottom where the feet are, right? And you got the disc shape here, and there's a dome right here.
And then imagine Yoda.
like the Egyptian hieroglyphic.
No, like an ice cream cone.
like an ice cream. It's conical. Like it's a conical shape.
And imagine
Ooh.
Yoda in there with his hands on two different sets of controls, looking startled
Right.
that there was a dude standing in the window filming him the whole
Eyes
time.
are bugging out. Like he's like, whoa.
And this
Where's
only
this
appeared
tape at?
in one
Where's it at?
frame. It's in a film that we haven't been able to make.
we haven't
public
released
yet.
it yet.
You haven't released it yet, or you're not just going to release
We don't
it?
have access.
We don't have
to
access
release
to.
it.
We don't have permission to release it yet.
We don't have access to release it.
Yeah.
God, fucking. If you release that, I feel like that. This is what I said at the beginning of the show. I get followed home.
I would make everything else
Yeah.
look like
Oh,
child
You're getting
support.
followed home
yeah, I'm
regardless,
getting followed
'cause you-
home. My kids are being,
You strayed away from the question.
It's
that
all-
I asked
I know
earlier
your kids go to
about-
school at.
about what you saw.
yeah.
Hey,
It's all a matter of time.
I'm gonna look the camera in the eyes, man.
Oh. Making a bold stance say on BLACKSnYAC.
Oh,
Camera over there.
Go ahead,
right
Mike.
there.
Go and get him, Mike.
Ricky Williams, Lewis, middle name.
Oh, he's
Don't
changed the
look him
topic
up.
up completely.
I'm not changing the topic up. This guy has seen shit, and he's not wanting to put it on camera, but he wants to be followed. So
He just say he wants to be followed.
he wants to be followed. So DM him. Because this is one of those reasons why this podcast got started up. Because he wanted people to see what we talk about when we were in the garage. Just
You
shooting
talking about
shit.
what I actually saw?
Yeah, what you saw. But I'm not gonna make him do it here. I'm gonna put my hat back on, Ash Ketchum style.
Maybe Ricky needs some emails.
Send this man emails because he knows.
Hey,
what the fuck is going on.
BLACKSnYAC@gmail.com.
Send him emails.
Respond back to the
'cause
show.
He knows what's going on. And then on the same sense, we were already on we're on the topic for a minute.
Okay, so we
But
only got
abductions.
we only got 5 minutes left. So real quick, abductions. Tell me you know. Tell me you think. Tell me you know.
Barney and Betty. Specifically.
Well, we know Kathleen Martin, and she was related to
Cousin,
Betty and Barney.
yeah.
She's a cousin. And, after reading her book, I highly recommend it because she's got a lot of new information that really expounds on the original book that was written by Betty and Barney Hill. And that entire encounter, at first I was leery about it, but then after reading Kathleen's book and speaking with her, we recently did a cruise with her where we were speaking on...
You did a cruise with her?
Yeah, we were with Cozumel and...
hey, that's like I said, yeah, invite me to some of these events. BLACKSnYAC got to show up.
Hey, man, just check our website.
Link to our website, yeah.
MUFONVA.com. We got a newsletter, which we're kind of behind on.
Hey, update it. We'll be out there.
But anywho, so I believe it's an event that really took place. Basically, Betty and Barney Hill, they were traveling home from a weekend trip, and they encountered this UFO that took them aboard and, educated them a little bit. They prodded them a little bit, took some skin samples from them. They didn't know what happened. They had missing time. All the bells and whistles that come with an abduction event took place. On top of that, her hood of her car was magnetized, which was amazing. So she had a tangible... magnetic anomaly on her vehicle.
That was the trunk.
The hood, the front hood where the emblem is.
And the funny thing about that story, I mean, not story, but like that happening, is the fact that they had a psychiatrist or a therapist.
Springle.
Look,
Leo Springle.
She took the liberty to separate both of them and have them both tell their stories.
Same story.
And hypnonize
like
them.
police interrogation tactics,
But wouldn't let them get it all the way out. Yeah, you're heard right now, huh?
Yeah. And same, got
don't worry about me. I'm a professional.
The evidence on the dress, too.
But what's interesting, too, about the whole case, that interracial relationships at that time were really frowned upon.
Why would they draw attention
to bring
themselves?
attention?
Yes, that's what I want to bring up, too.
Yeah.
Interracial relationships.
Right.
Yeah,
that's one of the most important aspects of this case. That people that are denouncing the
they had everything to lose and nothing to gain by telling the
Right,
story unless it
lose.
actually happened.
Because it was in '72, and he wanted to bring a lot of information or attention to not information, but attention to himself.
Right.
So
and that great movie with James Earl Jones was.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched that. I'm like, wow, I got to find out.
Did a
about
good
what
job.
movie is this?
Interrupted Journey, which is
Is
based
this
on
about
the book.
it?
Yeah, James Earl Jones was great.
It's an Interrupted Journey.
And for all y'all who are
I gotta check it
Star
out.
Wars fans,
Excellent
we're talking about Darth Vader. He plays Barney. If you don't know who James Earl Jones is, he's Darth Vader.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Vader had a career before Star Wars.
Dude, we could talk about this thing for like another 5 hours.
Yeah.
What's
We
longer
haven't
than
even
that?
touched on a myriad of other topics.
You know what though? I want y'all to come back
Definitely.
because there's a lot
Come back
more.
after we go to Socorro. And
Yeah, we'll give
Actually,
you guys
I'm
an
gonna get your
update.
yeah,
information
that'd be
before
great.
you leave, so
we-
I can
'cause that's still
keep in
what's about-
contact with you guys.
Yeah.
Because I'm a firm believer.
Yeah,
I tell my wife all the time. She's like, "Why are you up here researching this shit at 2:00 in the morning?" I'm like, "Hush and go to sleep unless you're going to turn over and give me some of that."
We also
But
have
like-
monthly meetings. If y'all ever want to come by, they're on our website.
See,
Oh,
monthly
speaking of-
meetings.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak on camera or do you want to just afterwards?
Oh, it's cool.
Hey,
Anybody's welcome to
attack
come
the
out.
camera, attack the camera.
Check out MUFON. That's MUFON. V as in Virginia A.com. We have a newsletter. We have meetings every month. Anybody's welcome to come
articles
out
that we've
free of
written.
charge.
Yeah. We discuss every topic that's going on right now. So we've discussed To the Stars and real versus fake UFOs and almost all the topics we've talked about today. But it's an ongoing thing. So, this is the greatest mystery of all time.
Great. And we're at BLACKSnYAC. And I got to take a piss. Mac, make it happen.
All right. So
Nice.
we've reached that segment where we have to wrap the whole session up. I'd like to thank our guests to come in. That they came in. I appreciate you guys coming in, shedding some insight. A lot of questions that we asked that weren't even part of the script. It was just you guys just letting us know. We are sincerely thankful for that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a great time.
I look forward to speaking with both of you guys, in future terms, not even for just a podcast, just to
Sure.
familiarize myself and scratch the curiosity that killed the cat. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
it's a
saying? 'Cause
great
eventually
subject.
it's going to get me killed, like it does not go in turn. This podcast is going to be the death of
We
all
all
of us,
have
so.
our concealed carry permits.
Here in DC, it's kind of hard to get that shit, man.
Yeah, we don't
To tell you the
have.
truth, like you can't just be running around carrying, man.
In
Like
DC
you
you
can have your
can't,
carrying
right.
license,
Yeah.
but you can't get that shit.
Yeah,
got some-
Virginia is different. So yeah, we go shooting and stuff.
It's
and,
kind of weird.
yeah.
We can carry guns, but we can't carry weed.
Yeah, you can carry weed in DC, but not in Virginia. But you
Yeah.
can carry guns in Virginia.
But now we, I know it's back,
carry
it's
assault
fucked
rifles
backwards. So
openly.
you pick if you're a lover or you're a killer over there, man. So, and with that being said, I'd like to give a great shout out to our gentlemen who came out here, took their time out to come to DC to tell us about everything, you know, what they know. Not even everything what they know, because I think we only just scratched the surface of it. Did you gentlemen have any of the last thoughts?
Watch this, guys.
You know, I was gonna say,
in the daytime,
they might want to check out our boy Wilbur Allen here in DC.
Yeah, Wilbur Allen is a photographer with some really
Right
high
by the White
end.
House, he worked for the Clinton administration.
Yeah, well, you can find Wilbur on YouTube. He has a lot of videos.
UFODC.com, I believe.
Yeah, he films the same spot over Washington D.C. every single night, and has been capturing anomalies for a while. So he's our guy in D.C. and visit our website, look at MUFON VA. You can become a field investigator also, which is interesting. So
I'm gonna do that. I'm doing that. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, we need them in DC especially. So it's a great topic. We love talking about it because it leads to everything. Why are we here? Where are we from? Does another civilization have a religion? How do they survive their atomic age? There's so much to know and learn. It's just no limit.
So if you guys are interested, go and look up MUFON, Google it. It'll take you straight to the site. We'd like to thank them. We'd like to thank our cast, our host who helped us to film this and bring this to you guys. The intriguing features that allowed us to bring this podcast to you guys. And at the end of the day, this is BLACKSnYAC. If y'all have any kind of suggestions, let us know. Shoot us an email. And y'all have a wonderful night. Happy Friday.
Nah, fuck all that.
Oh, fuck all that.
God damn, Mac, you ain't wrap this shit up yet?
He's done pissing.
I took like a 5-minute piss. You ain't wrap this shit up yet?
Yeah,
He
you
comes,
wash your
he comes in, he
hands.
goes, bring it back.
Did I wash my hands? Yeah, I washed my hands.
No, you didn't.
You sure? Let me touch you.
Hey, don't touch me, dog.
Ricky's down
Hey,
for another
MUFON.
hour.
Hey, MUFON.
You gonna say the same thing I just
Ben,
said.
Tony. Thank you. Hey, hey.
Thanks.
Hold a second. Thank you very much for coming out today. Mac, where were you at the first 2 shows? Incognito. Don't even answer. You can answer off camera.
Abducted.
Hey, Mike.
Abducted.
One love, massive. We appreciate everybody out there watching. If you have any questions, just get in the comment box. Description, timestamps will all be below. Nothing but love for y'all. Peace, peace, positivity, and once again, love. That's it. Mike, go and cue that music.